order, please.
We have to wait until it comes online.
Right, where you want me to go?
Oh, did it? Yeah.
Thumbs up, he says.
Microphones, everyone. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please. The microphone cord's a little short. I stand up. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to try and give a report every general meeting just on law enforcement deaths throughout our country. Right now for 2018 we have 6. I think I reported it was a 151 in the line of duty for 2018. I want to revise that to 148. Just a side note, Mr. Chair, the average age is 37 on those law enforcement officers that have given their lives, and of course most of them are young fathers. And they're usually 7 to 8 year average on their time of service. So if we could just have a moment of silence and come back next meeting, and hopefully there will be no additions to that 2019 tally. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We'll start this morning with some public comments. Lucy Labonte.
Thank you. Lucy Labonte, President of the League of Women Voters of Curry County, 98645 Agnes Road, for the record. As some of you may remember, we had a lady down here speaking to us about civil discourse last fall, and my board met we decided not to take any action until January, and we met Monday. So I'm going to read you the league position and then make a request. The league position is to promote civil discourse through action and education for all government bodies, staff, citizens, for the purpose of improved public policy decisions and processes. Civil discourse means, at a minimum, mutually respectful, courteous, constructive, and orderly communication. And we decided to wait until the new elected officials in Curry County were seated to request that our government bodies pass a proclamation declaring March Civil Discourse Month. And I actually have a copy of a blank, which is a city one, but that's okay. I'm not sure who writes up proclamations at this point. I know I used to do it as a county commissioner and hand them to staff to save them some time. I'm not sure if you're at that mode yet, but I will hand this to
County Council.
County Council.
Let him brief it.
And then you have to decide whether that's a good thing.
Thank you. So you're requesting this for March. Okay. So we'll work on that and coordinate with the chair and the
That gives me time to run around I've already talked to the city of Brookings, but not given them the sample yet, so I need to run around, talk to everybody. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great meeting.
You as well. Have a good day.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
Commissioner
pointing to you.
Boyce and myself.
Does that mean we would have to be civil for an entire month? And I'm just dying to ask former Commissioner Labonte if she ever got gavelled,
Actually,
just for fun.
Actually, to tell you the truth, we really did work very well together. I don't think I ever got angry at a county commissioner up there. I was angry sometimes when I'd walk in the room, but I did not let it show. I think one time I was accused of something, and I remember staring into the camera and making a very stern statement. But no, we were very careful not to show anger and have respect. And Commissioner Schaefer once said to me, you know, you're very interesting how you work, because you get really angry sometimes, not out here, but she'd seen my temper sometimes. She said, but once you get angry, you just go back to working with me, and I really appreciate that. And so, you know, we're all going to have temper flare-ups, but it's learning how to work respectfully with each other, even if you have disagreements. You have to learn to agree to disagree, and I saw a little backing off at the last meeting, and I thought that was really good. And I know you're going to have differences. Everybody does. I think Walt Schroeder once said to a room of people, "Raise your hand if you've never had a disagreement with your wife." And everybody laughed, and nobody raised their hand. So there you go.
Thank you.
Thank you to the league.
Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I know we're in public comments. There's item approval, adoption, or amendments to the agenda, and I wanted to offer one amendment myself. I don't know if any of the commissioners have an agenda. I'll wait until the commissioners work on that.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. Why don't we, since we started the public comments, why don't we go ahead and go through them now?
That's fine. Yep, just wanted to, I
thank
didn't
you.
want us, and I got it from JJ, so.
Okay.
Just wanted to kind of.
He caught it.
David Barnes?
Good morning, David Barnes. I wanted to make a request of you. I know that you've been trying to figure out the logistics of having meetings in places other than this room, and there's been some discussion about making some meetings at nighttime. You know, while you're in this room, you have 2 meetings coming up in February. I'd like to see you make one of them be at 5:30 p.m. Give people, working people a chance to get out to these meetings and see what it's all about. You know, we're kind of limited being at 10 a.m. every week. It's limiting on the amount of people who can get out. And, I'd just like try it once and see if more people show up. It's just a suggestion, request. And then another thing is that during your workshops, it's been practice of past boards not to accept public comment during workshops. The reason being that it was the only chance that the 3 commissioners got to get together and talk about things. This was from before the time where there was a county administrator. This had been the policy. And I'd like you to ask you to change that, please, and to allow public comment at your workshops. The workshops are where people come out and they present ideas to the board for further advancement. The board at that time, at the next meeting will direct staff to work on things. And I found through my involvement and my observation of government over the years is that once an idea gets presented and people start investing some time in it, no matter how bad the idea it is, people don't want to throw it away, and we'll follow through with it and carry forward with it. Sometimes bad ideas, I believe that the Langlois Enterprise Zone is a bad idea. If that had come up before a workshop, we could have saved all the trouble of it, maybe, The people who came out to speak about it, the only ones who spoke for it were people whose job it is to create enterprise zones. But all the residents of Langlois uniformly said, we don't want it. To me, as a potential property buyer, it would definitely scare me away from the area. But that's something that could have been put to bed at a workshop rather than keep coming up again and again and again. And I'd like to ask you to just reconsider that policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Actually, so you do know, we are looking at, or at least I am looking at, and I think it is a very positive to do some evening meetings. I think we may wait. I would like to look to wait till March because we've got so much reorganization going.
Mm-hmm.
But I would love to do something in the evening, at least one meeting a month, and then possibly, like Commissioner Boyce has mentioned, I'm going down into Brookings and or Port Orford and including all of the citizens of the county to have a chance to get involved in their government.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I may have one quick comment.
Yes, sir.
Langlois Enterprise Zones, I did get certainly far less emails, Mr. Barnes, in support of the enterprise zones than in favor, but there were surprisingly a few came in at the end. So,
Okay.
Yeah, thank
All right,
you.
Thank you.
Jim Haley of Pacific Gales.
Hi, Jim Haley, Pacific Gales. Just wanted to give you a quick update on where we're at. Back in February of last year, the board approved our alternatives analysis that went on to LUBA. LUBA gave us favorable language in that our permit is vested. One of the objections by the opponents were that our permit had lapsed and gone away. And so we feel really good about it. We're in the funding of it now, and it seems to be going along really well. this week I'm here all week. Unfortunately, one of the senior Knapps passed away, Dave Knapp. I'm sure, Court, you know him. And so it's kind of a tragic thing that we're dealing with, and his services are in Langlois at 2 o'clock on Saturday. So that's all I really had, and I just wanted to say thank you for your support in that decision on the alternatives analysis and helping us get that pushed through. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
you.
Jim.
Thank you. See you Saturday.
Mr. Barnes, I'll also note that I see 2 more here for later. If I step over them, please raise your hand and remind me. All right, so I'd like to go backwards here, and we're going to look at the supplemental agenda items. And we're going to operate off of those, I guess. Number 4A is a transient advisory committee member appointment.
Well, sure, I agree. We will be operating off the revised agenda and the supplemental agenda, and those items are included. And just want to make sure everyone's on the same agenda, that you're all looking at the supplemental. But I think I actually had an item to add to the agenda as an amendment.
Okay.
So,
So do I.
okay, and I defer to the commissioners first, and then I'll go after that.
So go ahead, Commissioner Gould.
I have concerns with HC and would like an executive session under ORS 192.6602A to consider employment of a public officer, employee, or staff member. And I'd like to move 8C after that executive session.
And where do you want to move the executive session to again?
After commissioner updates. Just
After
at the end of the
updates.
meeting like
Okay.
they normally are.
Council?
I'll have some further discussion at that time. So I think it's okay to put that on the agenda, and then we can talk about it when it comes up.
Okay. So we're going to move 8C into executive session after.
No.
We would be
After.
adding a discussion that would come after the discussion. So the 8C is a decision item.
Right.
And there would be, Commissioner Gold is asking for an exec session for discussion, and I'll have some input at that time.
Okay. And your change, Council?
Oh, thank you. At your places, you should see an order terminating the Curry County building official. It looks like this. I'm not sure if you see anything like that, but it talks about on September 19th, 2018 order. Anyway, I would just like it to be added, and it can also go at the end of the meeting as far as I'm concerned. But that was my request to add that. So that would be item, it just could be at the end of the meeting.
After the executive session or
Sure,
before?
it can be, honestly.
Or you want it up in here?
Why don't we do it after executive session?
I think if we just do it at the end of the meeting, I just want it to be aware, have the commissioners be aware of it, have time to read through it, and that kind of thing. So I think at the end of the meeting would be good.
Any other amendments? Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to the TLT, the transient lodging tax. I'd asked for a couple of weeks on our last meeting, and the board essentially settled for a 1-week delay. As you are aware, everyone is aware, we have till the first Tuesday of March to get this completed. And a couple of our fair executives have recommended that we listen to former Commissioner Susan Brown's presentation on the entire program, and I think we have a copy here, but I understand that she puts it on screen, and it's very informative, very effective, and I would like to encourage the board to table this and include that in the next, on the 23rd meeting if we could, and see if she would be available. Yes? I'm fine.
Holding my place here, but I got a call from the county clerk today, Renee Colin, and she saw this item on the agenda, and she gave me information for herself. There's a publication date, I think, but she said the latest that the clerk's office needs to receive it to meet the publication deadline. She gave me the date of February 21st. So I just want everyone to know that the clerk's office told me today that we have until February 21st to get the ballot item to her. So still, I think it's close to the time you're talking about, but she called me today and told me that.
That gives us less than a month. That doesn't change my recommendation or request here, but it does. That's very good insight to hear and to understand, and it's a deadline.
I understand. So you're making a motion to remove this
Yes.
and place
Well,
it,
let's make sure we're phrasing that to continue that for 1 week.
continue it for another week, okay? Any other comments?
So that would be items F, 5, and 6? Is that what you're referring to?
That's correct, Commissioner Gold.
I don't think I'll have a problem moving it for 1 more week. She's going to do a presentation next Wednesday then, on the 23rd?
It's my understanding she would be available.
Okay.
And I would
Hopefully
encourage
we
the
can
board.
work through the rest of this week to get everyone up to speed and with her presentation, satisfy everyone.
And that also being available and direct to the public, I think could have a benefit to all too.
I think public knowledge on this is going to be imperative for this to be able to get through. I think everyone in the county needs to understand how important this is to the county, and making sure that everything in this, all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. So I'm fine
Thank you.
to put this off 1 more week.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay, good. Then F, 5, and 6 will be removed from the agenda and put off until the meeting of the 23rd. And then we'll also figure out a presentation at that time. Okay, then I have one thing here, the emergency discussion on the South County Towers, which is F4B. And I would like to move that up to number 1 on the consent agenda, which would be E. I want to make that E3, and then we'll move everything down 1. E3 would become E4, E4 would become E5, and then 5A.
If I could offer,
Yeah.
you got some comments here.
No, just I think you're going to recommend we put it under presentations and not consent calendar?
In between presentations and consent calendar.
Okay.
So
Good.
That's fine.
technically, again, the consent item is usually to vote without discussion. I think you're anticipating discussion, so it should, I think, a standalone item off the consent agenda after presentations.
So wouldn't that just stay the same, it seems to me?
Well, no, it'd be, he's proposing moving it in front of the consent
Oh,
agenda is
in
what I
front of,
understand.
okay.
After-
Yeah, we've got the sheriff and several
Yeah.
people here, and I
Oh, okay,
don't
that
want
makes
to have
sense.
them wasting all their time here. Yes, Commissioner Boyce.
Since the sheriff is here and some of his staff, it might be best to have him come right up to the front of the line and do it now.
I'm all for doing that.
Will of the board there.
Thank you.
I'm all for doing that. Commissioner Gold?
I don't have a problem with that.
Okay.
It's just the insurance people, do they have a problem with waiting?
Just insurance
And
people?
I think
I
the
don't know.
fleet people as well.
All right, so
I'm
let's.
glad they're here.
Then we've got agreement on that we will move. We'll move that up in front of the presentations. Okay, can I get a?
I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Any further comments or questions? The question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so next we're going to look at emergency discussion on the South County Towers. Sheriff Ward notified me the other day that what he was hoping to have last up to 10 or 15 more years lasted 4 days. So, Sheriff
Ouch.
Ward, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Commissioners. Sheriff John Ward, here to talk about what we feel is a county emergency in our communications. We have no communications in our South County at this point. We have 6 links in our microwave system. We've been talking about replacing this microwave system for several years. Past 2 years has been to the forefront of us explaining that we're starting to have problems with these microwave system, and we cannot afford to be down with our communications. And what happened here recently was there was a damage to one of the microwaves on Bosley View. It was a cover to one of them, and then the next thing we knew, the dish right underneath it had fell and hit the ground. Took us out of communications in the South County. We called Day Wireless. They were able to come in. They robbed some parts from Black Mound, which Black Mountain now is down, and put the dish. Actually, we had a dish that was bought about 10 years ago, but it didn't have all the parts to it. They were able to take that dish, put it up on the Bosley Butte, rob some parts off Black Mound, and get Bosley back up, so we have limited communications. Within 2 weeks, that dish came off the tower again and is on the ground. Now we were completely down without communication in South County. Yes.
Were there any guarantees as to longevity or
Well,
having that thing up? I mean, it took a helicopter, I noticed.
well, the helicopter was only there to transport the crew in, get them there quicker. It wasn't used to mount the thing. They did have to go up and climb the tower, pull it up with pulleys and things like that, and mount it. We still don't know what caused it to come down. They're still looking into
there were
it.
any high winds or anything at that
There was a storm come in that week. What's that? On Tuesday and Wednesday. So with that being down, we have no communications down south. That affects our whole 911 system about communications down there. And in our opinion, it's a county emergency. We can't have deputies or ambulances or anybody going out in the rural areas and not have communications with them. So Day Wireless was able to get a crew down here, and they're actually down there today robbing some more parts off of Black Mound to put on Bosley to get it up and running again today. But they're not making these parts and stuff for us to be able to support those, and Day Wireless are here. So we've been talking about replacing this whole system, and I have Calvin from Day Wireless here to talk about it, but I want to read something that he had sent me and I want to put it on record. And in the meantime, I want to pass out a couple things that to the commissioners about what it would cost to replace the system.
Good thing we're sitting down.
Well, just so you guys are aware, that's a rough order of magnitude, not the exact cost.
Probably want to have one for the record.
Like I said, that is a rough order of magnitude. It's not the exact cost. That would have to be penciled out.
So, like I say, I want to read something that was given to me, and just to get it on record. Curry County existing microwave system consists of 6 microwave paths, 6 sites supporting 911 communications within Curry County. The system was designed and implemented around 2005, including best practices at the time with Harris microwave radios, RFS, dishes, feed horns, etc. Although not present during implementation, they thought it's worth mentioning that the county did a good job preparing for future failures, including hot standby at each site, whereas if either a microwave receiver or transmitter failed at any site, there was a redundant backup to keep the microwave link operational. Unfortunately, the microwave system has been failing in a greater frequency, especially over the past few years, both electrically and mechanically. As you know, Curry County experienced 2 dish failures within 30 days at the Bosley Butte. Reasons for the dish failures are unknown, other than the mounting point failures causing both dishes to fall from the tower. In addition, just last week, the Cape Blanco microwave receiver also failed. The site maintained online only because of the functionality of a hot standby. However, there are no more spare receivers to be had, as the equipment is no longer supported by manufacturers similar to the majority of the RF equipment currently being used. Although Bosley Butte will be operational in a quick order, Black Mound will not, and as we need to sacrifice that site's microwave dish in order to get Bosley back online. Replacement parts for the Black Mound dish have been sourced, but takes time for manufacturer to spec and ship a replacement antenna, even if the order is expedited or for emergency communications. This is yet an additional expense that the county will realize for an aging system that, in my opinion, Day Wireless' opinion, needs to be replaced for just a few reasons given. What I would like to do is bring Calvin up from Day Wireless, and he can explain a little bit more about just how the system works and what we're facing and the issue we're having right now.
Okay, sounds good, thanks.
Good morning, Calvin Amy with Day Wireless Systems. And as the sheriff had mentioned, this isn't, we have 2 mechanical failures over the past 30 days, and that is with the dishes on Bosley. But I think what is important to realize is that the system has been degrading and failing over many years, 2-3 years. And we know this because each of the sites are monitored. When there's a failure, a power failure, if there's a low signal or what they call a margin fade for microwave, we're aware of this. And it allows us to go out and troubleshoot. Put aside the dish failures itself, it is not having the ability to get the equipment repaired. And I say the equipment. The antennas can be replaced, the dishes. They're kind of generic in nature. It's the radio equipment that supplies the microwave frequency to those dishes that cannot be repaired any longer. So I believe it was a year, even 2 years ago, we had a similar discussion as to where the county's at with the microwave. The fact is that where the county's at, not only with the microwave, the LMR or the radio system, the simulcast system, also needs to be replaced at least sometime down the road. But it was agreed, or at least the plan from a migration strategy was to let's tackle the microwave system first, and then we can work with the rest down the road later at a different time, because it is expensive, no doubt about it. The system, as I mentioned to the sheriff, the system was originally designed very well, with very good equipment, by the way. It's survived so far up to close to, 13, 14 years or whatever it's been. A new system, unlike the system you currently have, which is analog, a new system would be an IP-based solution. It offers much greater flexibility, in particular with bandwidth, and that's very important, the bandwidth, the ability, how much can you actually push through the system. So the system also, a proposed IP-based solution is also P25 Phase 2 compliant. So down the road, when it is decided that all agencies must be now not just P25 compliant, but P25 Phase 2, it has the ability or will be able to handle that protocol for you. So one last thing, the original ROM is based upon your existing system, meaning we looked at your existing sites, we get an idea of how much each site's going to cost based upon our experience, and that was what was proposed. If the county wants to move forward with a solution, we will re-engineer to a degree your existing solution, whereas it is a ring. And what that ring means is that basically, if not all the sites talk to one another in a circle, at least the majority do, the ones that are most important, the ones that are your core, right? The benefit of a ring is that if there is a dish, for example, that happens to fall or something fails, the ring goes the opposite direction. So you maintain connectivity for officer safety. So that would be something else that we would look at. Again, none of that's covered really within the ROM. It's more about replacement equipment, labor, things of that nature. But even this system, we would have to re-engineer for you to get you a price point, an exact price point. But I believe the ROM came in at $650,000, roughly.
684, it said.
684. That figure would vary depending upon additional sites, not having to include additional sites, that sort of thing, but not by much.
Is it my understanding that the new systems are a much narrower bandwidth now?
Yes, yes, they are.
So you're on a much more concentrated bandwidth. You're not having all the chatter?
It's efficient. It's digitized versus like a sine wave, if you will.
That was my next question. Is this a digital system?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, wow.
Would you have any guarantees as far as longevity of the system?
The manufacturer has, of course, their warranty period on all equipment, which is usually 3 years.
And can you buy extended warranties?
Oh, I'm sure you can, yes.
Okay.
I'm sure you can.
Next question would be timeline to get this put in, because this is imperative. To me, it's my head doesn't rest if I don't have deputies in fire and rescue that have access to all the things they need to protect themselves and the public.
So if the county wanted to move forward with it, engineering would take place first. We would put, obviously, a precedent on the engineering study. I would say 30 to 45 days. Once we have that, then we know exactly all the parts and pieces. We have the quote, the county approves it, we order it. Implementation, probably 90 days from that time.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Chair Pash. I think we have the right guy here. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is long-term financing available, regardless whether it's a little bit more, or hopefully substantially less. We also have Roadmaster Christensen here. He may have something to offer. And then, I assume, and then where are you based, Miss? I didn't get your last name, I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry, Amy, E-M-I-G-H.
Okay.
I'm based out of Medford, personally, but, you know, I have technicians that live in Brookings, all the way down 101 and up the 101.
So can I ask how long you've been with Day Wireless?
8 years?
Thank you.
7 years?
That's all, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
I just
Commissioner
have
Gold.
one other question. I had heard that technology is improving greatly, and where are we on this ledge here? Are we going to have to replace this in another couple of years, or?
The microwave system?
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, technology always, right?
Well, I know it's always going,
Yeah.
but-
The system, I'm just going to name a manufacturer, and there's a couple, but when you look at 911 safety grade systems like a Nokia system, which used to be called Alcatel-Lucent, they provide similar, for a period of time, they provide firmware upgrades. So if there's a change in technology, they can offer that to you. Does that last forever? No. On average, that usually runs about 10 years to 15 years, and then it's done.
Okay. Of course, there's a price for that, I'm sure.
For everything, yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately,
And I'm
we
not
don't
in
have the
sales,
money
by the
to
way.
express here, so.
I've also looked into because since Sheriff Ward brought this to me, I've kind of looked into it somewhat. On a 4-trunk system for the county that we could install. Are you familiar with those?
What trunking?
Called a 4-trunk system that the county, it's like an fiber optic.
I'm not aware.
Okay.
You're not referring to the 7-county system, are you? The VCall system?
And I just read some articles, so I just kind of wanted to find
Gotcha.
out more about things before we...
So currently, the county, actually nobody really in Southern Oregon, except one, which is Rogue Valley Transportation District, operates a trunking system. Trunking systems, we get into that when we upgrade your LMR equipment. Right now, we're just talking about the backbone, which is
Gotcha.
what kind of holds all the pieces together, allowing communication. So, but personally, and I'm not trying to go down a rabbit hole, but in trunking standpoint, high volume, multiple users, that would be a good application for, and that could be something to be discussed down the road.
I've actually heard cities are starting to step away from those, so, because of the expense of them. So.
Well, they are, yeah, and some have not had great luck with that, Deschutes County.
So I guess my biggest question is kind of a feed off of Commissioner Boyce's. What is available to the county and as far as stretching this out over time, the cost of it?
From a financing standpoint?
Yes.
I wouldn't have the answer to that. I can get you that answer through
That
our
was a
sales
real
team.
long shot, sorry.
Well, I'm just, we're going to look at all of our options. but
Yeah,
this
thank
is something
you.
that I think this is something we need to take care of. To keep fixing something and now we don't even have parts to be able to fix it because the manufacturers no longer make those parts.
There is
That's a white elephant.
there is a hub site that's critical to the infrastructure. It's called Grizzly. All right. There's something goes wrong with that site, it has the ability to take the whole system down. So we're beyond end of life of the equipment. Yeah, we can replace dishes. That's still expensive. And we're still maintaining the same technology. So in my humble opinion, as mentioned by the sheriff, without getting a up-to-date, state-of-the-art microwave system, hopefully engineered as a ring, the county's at risk for emergency communications.
So I kind of want to get this straight. You said it was a backbone, the thing you're proposing. But then also you mentioned that if Grizzly goes down, the whole thing goes down. Is that going to be the case if we were to put in a new system? If one of them goes down, it all goes down, or?
So to answer your question, if we replace your existing equipment in identical fashion, meaning how the sites talk to one another as of today, then yes. If Grizzly goes down, they would go down.
Okay, would that be a cheaper way to go? Just curious.
Slightly, and here's the reason why. We don't want that. We want a ring.
You want the ring system?
Well, no, I agree.
And a ring would probably be a little bit more expensive because I foresee, and I believe we may have included this in the ROM, I could foresee us adding an additional site to make a solid ring.
And that was included in this quote?
Yeah.
Kind of loosely?
It is, and that's why it's a ROM. It may go up some, it may be less. It's just, in the end, once we determine what we have to work with, and in particular a ring design, then we'll have an answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Well, what I'd like to see if we can, this is imperative as far as I'm concerned. We've got to protect the public in this county. That's what we're charged to do. I'd like to see at a minimum get a hard number for us. How do we do that? Do we need to do the engineering to do that? How do we arrive at a hard number, and then how do we talk about money?
Yeah, so I can initiate that process from an engineering standpoint, and then once that's complete, we get the numbers together from the manufacturer standpoint. Timeline for that, we could try to get it something within 30 days. That would be tight, no doubt, with all the projects that we have lined up. Go figure, so many other counties are upgrading their microwave system right now. Humboldt County is a great example. So resources from an engineering standpoint are somewhat limited, but yes, I think we can provide something hopefully within a 30-day time frame.
Sounds like you need to hire more people.
Yes.
I just have one other question. Are you the only company in this area that takes care of these microwave systems?
Day Wireless isn't the only company in this immediate area, yes. But what Day Wireless has is, we are the second largest, call it two-way, right, dealer and service basically in all western United States. So we stretch from our resources, we stretch from San Diego all the way up almost to Canada and into Idaho. So what we do have, and although I have technicians, I think I'm up to 8 or 9 technicians, right, that are all within Southern Oregon, Northern California. Such as, like, for example, the emergency with Bosley. One phone call and I've got a crew driving from Seattle the next day. And that's a lot of value. Now, other companies may offer that, but we have the resources.
I have one more question of Council Battle. I know we're supposed to get estimates and quotes, especially for an item this large. Are we required to do that? I think Louise has an answer.
Go ahead, Louise, step up.
I have an answer as well, but we'll wait for Louise.
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. Purchasing for emergency situations does not require that. However, also the Multnomah County has recently purchased a microwave system much like this one, and the contract does allow piggyback, so we wouldn't actually have to go out on quotes even if it was an emergency, because there is a contract out there, bid in the state of Oregon, that does not that allows us to piggyback on their contract with Day Wireless.
Okay.
Council?
Thank you. So Section 7 of our procurement rules, our contracting code, confirms what Louise Kallstrom has said. We allow emergency contracts. They are exempt from competitive bid. The factors are that there is an interruption of service that is a threat to public health, safety, and welfare that could not reasonably have been foreseen and requires prompt execution of the contract to remedy the condition. And then what it says is if the board determines a emergency, a majority of the board at least shall vote to that effect under those terms, and then determine the method used for selection of the particular contractor. And what Louise Kallstrom is identifying is a statutory exemption from competitive bid called cooperative procurement. And I reviewed the Multnomah contract. Louise Kallstrom forwarded it to me. And so it does meet the factors of, so the idea of what she described as a piggyback, and I'll call it cooperative procurement, is that we would review it to make sure they did competitive procurement.
Okay.
And so, right, and so when we look at their process, if they've done an advertisement and selected the right person, we can basically adopt their procurement saying, yeah, they did a good process, and we agree that this is a competitive procurement, and it would be, essentially not a good use of our time to do our own. So, and that's allowed under state law as well.
Well, per our sheriff's direction, I would like to declare this an emergency as well. And I think it is this board's grasp to be able to vote on this, that we move forward with Day Wireless to get us a hard number and some engineering at a minimum, and then this board look forward, moving forward to not keep putting Band-Aids on this, but let's fix it. Commissioner Boyce.
I'm sorry, one more question for Mr. Me. Did I pronounce that correctly? You mentioned the Pacific Northwest, specifically Seattle, having a crew come down. Just for a visual, or hopefully the public and this listening can understand kind of what we're up against here. The terrain, and maybe there's comparisons in the Northwest, Curry County, although I don't think so, just the rugged terrain we have, which is why we have more towers that we need, because the signals, correct me if I'm wrong, they go down the valley, back up, yeah. And so I'm just wondering if that's something that you find is pretty common around the Northwest, just in aging systems, and where we are in that mix. And if there, I'm going to ask one more time, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer. You have searched every junkyard anywhere in the country for, for additional parts. And the chair mentioned, let's don't keep band-aiding it. And I understand that. I just don't know where we are financially, and too many questions. But
no, understood. So, yeah, the topography, as we all know, in the West, let alone Northwest, is difficult at best for RF propagation, thus requiring additional sites to clear mountains, hills, and things of that nature. It's just what it is. When we look at engineering a site, we try to be as efficient as possible, and there's more to it than that. So when you have a simulcast system, each of these towers are going to transmit at the same time, and that microwave ring, hopefully, is what kind of controls it all. But in a mountaintop or a hilly terrain situation, it's sometimes difficult to find the exact location where a tower needs to be. The county, for example, could have property at a certain point that, would allow us to have a ring. Okay, fair enough. But each of these sites have what they call overlap. And if you take a circle and you mesh these two circles just so slightly together, so they're tangent, that's what you strive for in a simulcast. If they bleed into one another even more so, you have problems. So we take that into consideration for engineering and, of course, our tower location placement. And all that would be, of course, to come. And then you also talked about where's the county, in terms of other counties. Like most rural counties with aged equipment. That's just what it is, and that's the reason why, for example, Humboldt County is upgrading their microwave system right now. City of Eureka is upgrading. City of Grants Pass, Josephine County just got a quote to upgrade, because it's not that they're not experiencing failures as much as you are. They are, but they know it's time to move on because of the one technology, and the technology that they currently have does not support the evolution of their land mobile radio system.
Commissioner Boyce.
Thank you very much for allowing this extra time. I think it's obviously critical. Are you with Humboldt County and Joe County in those contracts and work? Good, thank you.
Yeah, I manage all the counties, so.
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Calvin, could you highlight for them a little bit more about the Cape Blanca one, about the receivers we talked about, since we...
Sure. So actually, unbeknownst to me until just yesterday, we had a failure at Cape Blanca. Cape Blanca has been a very difficult site to maintain. This site was in an alarm status, so Will Gilbert, our tech who takes care of this area, traveled to Cape Blanca, realized we had a receiver that was bad, it failed. We pulled it, we had one spare left. We don't have any more spares. So that's a hot standby. We have 2 transmitter receivers, two receiver receivers. We don't have any more receivers or any more receivers for that site. So if there's a failure at Cape Blanca again, yes, it will go into hot standby. But if that hot standby receiver fails, the site's done. Plain and simple. And we could go to every single site and we could basically say the same thing. And not to keep harping on it, the new evolution of IP-based microwave systems, but there's also a benefit possibly from the county because of that additional bandwidth with carriers such as AT&T Wireless.
One more question. You mentioned that a lot of the counties are upgrading their systems. Are you saving the workable parts from those systems so that in
Yes.
case we can't...
Yeah, we call ourselves hoarders.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and that, even goes, for example, for the dispatch center here, the Gold Elite, Motorola Gold Elite console systems. When I had the Forest Service called me out of Klamath Falls and said, hey, we've got our outfit up in Washington that's taking down their Gold Elites and they're going to upgrade to whatever, I said, give me every single part you have. And they did.
Okay.
So
That's good to know.
And that goes, yeah.
Because it's going to take a while to go through this process, and meanwhile, stuff may break down, so.
And basically, what you're saying is you are currently out of certain things in that inventory of scrounging. You're out of those inventory parts, certain parts that we need.
Yeah, in particular, so you have what they call a Harris Constellation microwave system. There are no parts. Could we go on eBay? Probably. But that's where we're at. Yeah, and also there are different types of microwave systems. You could go with a less expensive model, but when it comes to 911 systems, we don't go that route for a good reason, in particular redundancy and technology. But so there are options out there. The options that we are going to suggest are most likely going to be a Nokia product or a Cambium product.
Well, I'd like to see a hard number on exactly what you think it'll cost through the engineering, and I think that is our next step.
Okay.
Let me just reiterate something. If ever there was a county emergency, we're in a county emergency at this point. And we're not talking just about the life and safety of my deputies or the ambulance crews, the fire crews. We're talking about the public itself not being able to communicate as we're responding to their calls.
I will promise you one thing. I, from this board, will move as quickly as we can to get a solution to this matter.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Mr. Chair.
So, Mr. Chair, I think entertaining a motion to declare an emergency under our contracting code and direct staff to engage in cooperative procurement with Day Wireless for the towers.
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second, Mr.
Any
Chair.
further discussion?
Just one other point, and this is just a point that we need to be looking at. If we come up with a hard number, we need to be looking at having those entities that are using the system pay for the system, especially because it's going to become obsolete, just like any technology. And we don't want to be in this same position again where we don't have the money. So.
And it's like he also said, we might be able to contact people like AT&T and Verizon. They can also, we can lease them space on those. So,
Well, especially,
That's an income resource.
and I'm just going to read something real quick that I didn't read prior to, about your comments. Last, replacing your existing analog with microwave solution with IP-based solution is like comparing a flip phone or a dial-up phone with a smartphone in terms of functionality. Other than having the state-of-art equipment, I could foresee a financial benefit to the county. With an IP-based solution, the county might be able to offer AT&T wireless and the additional bandwidth required to support the 4G rollout, along with the cost, thus realizing additional revenue, reoccurring revenue. Just a thought.
Oh, okay, so that's what you were talking about?
That's in perpetuity also.
Well,
You never know on that one.
and that's about all I have to say about it. You know, we can always, you know, go after other users for this, but in the meantime, we have to fix the system and
Oh, I
then
agree.
and go through that, because we cannot afford, liability-wise. The captain gave me a little story about some OSHA issue, and I don't know if we want to bring that up, but it is a huge liability not being able to provide communications to our 911 system.
So is that why I got a couple of robocalls about 911 not being available?
No, that was a different thing.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
Captain wanted to say a few words here.
Madam Commissioner, I just want to respond on one thing. You mentioned, you know, all of our users paying more and everything else. That, while in theory is fine and great, but the basic thing is this is our communications system. It's for our people. Yes, we dispatch for other people, for ambulances, for fire, for the road department uses it. It's the county's system. So ultimately, even though we would like to try and charge people more and everything else, ultimately we have to remember it is our responsibility to provide the communications that we're required to have. And you know, I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you about some of my experiences with radio systems and lack of. I don't think this is the appropriate time and place for that. But like I said, it is the county's responsibility to maintain a system for communications, whether it's for our highway workers who also use the microwave backbone when they're out flagging, when they're out doing, you know, working on county roads, because they have the same problem we do. If they go up the river roads, their cell phones don't work, and they get somebody, you've all seen it, you get some person that wants to run their flagging crew and run over one of our road workers doing a project. I mean, it's not just law enforcement, it's all of us. We all use that system for our emergency communications or for our day-to-day work. So it's, you know, like I said, we do provide radio coverage for other entities and they get charged for part of it, but it will never be enough to replace our system.
Yeah, I totally agree that I think we need to be proactive in putting away somehow the money so that the replacement money is there and we don't end up in this position again.
Correct. I agree.
Firm believer in
I agree
plans for the
100%.
future.
100% with that, but understand, it all does come down to that it is our responsibility. And the backbone that we're talking about, the microwave, the rest of it can be replaced as a little section here, a little section here. Unfortunately, on the microwave system, that's the big part, that's the backbone. That's what lets all the rest of it run, and that has to be replaced all at one time. You can't piecemeal that.
Oh, I
So-
agree.
All right, so I've got a motion and a second. Any further comments? A question?
Aye.
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 Thanks, Sheriff.
All right, next is, we're going to have a presentation from City County Insurance Services, Lori Kemper.
Morning, Commissioners. I'm Lori Kemper with City County Insurance Services. I just want to let you know a little bit about who we are and how we pertain to the county. We were formed in 1981 in an agreement between LOC and AOC when counties and cities in Oregon were unable to attain insurance on the open market due to the insurance crash in that time. The coverage is very broad that we offer. It encompasses the Oregon Tort Claims Act, and it also encompasses federal employment and civil rights claims, some limited pollution coverage, some cyber, and more features that are designed to meet the needs of Oregon public entities in Oregon. We represent currently 98% of the cities in Oregon and 78% of the counties. I have a handout here. I want to just give you a snapshot of a report that we put together for Curry County. It encompasses the last 5 years up to and through 2017. We're about ready to do the new one, so sorry that it's not completely current.
Thank you, and thanks for your patience.
Okay, some of the things I want to highlight on the report that I just handed out to you are specifically something that I do as a risk management consultant is a best practice survey with the county where staff participates and we look at the best practices in all the departments in the county. And we try to bring up a score that because it's a pool that we operate in where one county does great or poorly, then it affects the whole pool. We have a very large interest in making sure that we're doing the best we can statewide over the cities and counties that we represent. So the best practice survey that we performed with you, currently you're doing very well. The second page that of the report, actually the third on yours, shows that you're doing about an 87% on our score basis, which is very good. And then we show the average on that from all the counties and cities in Oregon at about 60. Another highlight of this report that I wanted to show you is the loss comparison on the very last, or second to last page, where we show the graphs, and that compares you with other counties and cities in the size of population that you have, between 10 and 25 for you guys, and it shows your entity as Curry County, and then with cities and counties in your comparison group as alike. So we did that comparison over general liability and property. And then as the all represents the entire pool, both cities and counties over 25,000 in population and under the 10,000. I also wanted to, well, before I move on from that report, do you have any questions for me on the report specifically?
Not at this time.
Okay. I also wanted to just kind of highlight some of the other things we do. One of the most important things that I believe that we do for the counties and cities we represent is we have a pre-loss attorney group that just works with cities and counties in situations like this for pre-employment. Employment claims represent a fourth of all of our claims statewide. So we have attorneys on staff as a free service to you to utilize in case anyone is going through a pre-employment suspension, termination, discipline, and you can call those attorneys for free. And to just add on to that, the benefit, we have a $15,000 deductible on employment claims that gets waived if you do use that service prior to a claim initiating. So one of our big things that we do offer that is invaluable. We also do risk management, just general if you're having an event, that's something that you call me for, best practice reviews. We did a cyber assessment for Curry County in 2018 where we evaluated your cyber capabilities and have that information now that we're going to also add some services with cyber, with your cyber internally, sorry. We provide statewide, local, and regional trainings to the area. We also in 2017 had a human resources assessment done for Curry County, and we also did a law enforcement best practices. So we've been here a lot, doing a lot of things for Curry County, and we just want to let you know some of those things, and there's a lot more, but that's...
Thank you very much, Lori.
Welcome.
We appreciate your time.
No problem, thank you.
All right, next we have a presentation from Enterprise Fleet Management.
Oh, thank you. I did
Sorry.
see Louise Kallstrom raise her hand, Mr. Chair. 11 o'clock is when we had scheduled public hearings. I think
Correct.
you were able to either take those now or continue them and make an announcement to folks.
Is
who are
there
here
anyone?
for
Is
them.
there anyone here for public hearings? Noting that there is currently no one here at 11 a.m. for public hearings, can we notice that we'll be doing them later? We'll probably get to them after lunch.
Isn't the rule that we just have to do it at least at 11 or after? I think that's the rule.
Can't do it before, but certainly.
Can't do it before.
Okay. But I just want to be respectful if anyone was here for the public hearings that we would notice them.
That's good.
All right, Fleet Management, Ryan Alford, and I just want to note also that we have Mr. Christensen, our roadmaster, here, and I've asked him to do some work on our inventory of the motor pool and some of the assessment of that as well. And Mr. Christensen may have some comments on his inventory after your presentation.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Ryan Alford. I work for Enterprise Fleet Management, and I do want this to be an open communication questions scenario. I'm happy to come down here and talk with you all and speak with you all, so please feel free at any point in time to stop me, ask good questions. It's a good opportunity to do so. So we are a full-service fleet management company that work with both private and public partnerships across the United States. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Enterprise in general. We are a division of Enterprise Holdings, also known as Enterprise Rent-A-Car. However, the conversation we'll be having today is not pertaining to rentals. It's more to the vehicles that you own and operate, and how you operate them and how long you keep them and things of that nature. So my goal today is to give you all a high-level overview of what we do, who we work with while I'm here, and again, at any point in time, please stop, ask questions. Road division being a huge part of what you all do here, sheriff's vehicles. I did put together a little bit of an analysis today to show you what we're capable of showing you. For future consideration into this type of program, we want to probably dial in the numbers a little bit more, specifically to what you're spending on maintenance and fuel costs and things of that nature. So that's kind of the idea. Before I get started, though, did any of the commissioners or anyone have any particular questions you wanted to make sure that I covered before I get too far into it?
Okay, I'm seeing pictures of police cars there.
Yes.
You rent police cars also?
We don't rent them. We do manage them
Lease
for you.
them, or-
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
This is a
so
lease program.
we have different funding structures that you can do. You'll hear a lease word a lot in this conversation. I don't want to scare anyone off. It's not your typical dealership lease. There's no wear and tear fees or minimum payments, things of that nature. It's more like a flexible finance. You'll hear things like equity lease or track lease is the financial term for what we do.
Okay.
And I'll get into what that is so specifically. But just to give you kind of an idea, about 3 or 4 months ago, we began a partnership with County County, helping them with their fleet operations. Similar to the situation I'm at today, I reached out to one of the commissioners. In the situation, I reached out to court, and just gave him a conversation over the phone about what we do, what we're doing for Coos County, what we're doing for other counties as well, to kind of give him an idea of this something he'd be even interested in looking into more. And so the realistic view when you're looking at a lot of fleets of counties and cities across the state of Oregon, you typically see a pretty aged fleet, and no different than what we were just talking about with your system, with your aged microwave system. You have a fleet that, other than sheriff's department, is getting up there in age. And so from a fleet manager perspective, we're trying to figure out what is the right tool for the job, how long should you hold on to vehicles, and that's really the core of what we do for our clients. We buy and sell more than 1 million vehicles per year. We now run 1.9 million vehicles across North America. We have the largest fleet in North America. So we're just go ahead, sorry.
Just one tiny question. You mentioned other counties that are involved with your corporation.
Yes.
How long have these counties been involved? Could we know of some counties that have been involved with your company for
Absolutely.
a long period of time, so
Yeah.
that we could maybe get some information from them?
Absolutely. So at any
Okay.
point in time, we can provide you references,
Okay.
local, non-local, long, short-term, medium-term. That's definitely part of this process for sure.
Okay,
Is
good.
providing references to you all. But yeah, just to give you kind of an idea of Oregon, we've been in the government sector, enterprise in general, for a little over 10 years now. Our Oregon office is kind of younger to our total fleet operation. We've only been in the government sector for maybe 5 or 6 years in this local state. But we're starting to see a lot of traction in what we do. Most people don't even know who we are or what we do. And we're not down the street, but we are local as local gets for you all. We're in the Portland metro area. We have 55 regional offices across the country. And we try to work within our region. So our office covers the entire state of Oregon and Southwest Washington. So, but yeah, just getting out there and letting people know who we are and what we do. And then trying to put together a program that fits what you all do. So every county and city is similar in some capacity, but also have different programs. Some have shops, some don't have shops, some internally do things, there's different ways of running your fleet, and our goal is just to put together a plan together that works for your county. So another thing I did want to mention before I got too far into it, you mentioned earlier cooperative purchasing. We recently won an RFP for fleet management services with Sourcewell, which Curry County is currently a member of. And so I will provide that information to you as well, so you can see the RFP that we won for procurement purposes. So you can check that out as well. We were rated number 1 on that report, ranking us from customer service to pricing to everything that we do. We ranked number 1 on that, so we're pretty proud of it. And it makes the process of working together much more easier, knowing that we already have an RFP out there that you can look into. So, cycle of service. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as I can. There's a lot of slides. I'm not going through them all, but again, we are a full service fleet management company. We are cradle to grave on what we can help you all out with. Doesn't mean you have to do everything. Some counties use us just for acquisition and the resale process because they know we can buy vehicles really well. We know we can sell vehicles really well because we sell 1 million and buy 1 million a year. But we do funding structures. Doesn't mean you have to do a lease or a flexible finance. You can always pay cash for vehicle. You can fund the vehicle however you like. Safety is a big part of this too. No one likes driving in a 13-year-old vehicle or 12-year-old vehicle. We look at different safety options and putting you into newer vehicles, things of that nature. We have maintenance programs, fuel programs that help track and vet out your repair process. A big part of what we do from a customer's perspective is analyzing your numbers, analyzing your operational costs, and figuring out, okay, we should have replaced this vehicle in year 3, or should we replace this vehicle in year 10, and so on and so forth. So it's a big, again, part of what we do. And then we help with upfitting. If you have an F550 and you need a service body on the back of it for a flatbed, we can help facilitate all that. We do those type of vehicles. The only type of vehicles we really don't get into is like your Freightliners, semi-trucks. We don't get into equipment, specific equipment. But pretty much, I always kind of say everything kind of like F550, F650 down, medium duty and down is kind of our niche. Any questions so far? No. So I kind of mentioned this earlier. Government's in a unique position when it comes to buying vehicles, and you're probably familiar with this, but it's really no different than what we do in our rental division. We try to buy the best way we can, the lowest vehicle cost that we can. We try to hold on to that vehicle the optimal time and then sell that vehicle back out in the open market at the optimal time, controlling our costs in the middle. So the idea of any perfectly ran fleet is to buy low as possible, sell high as possible, and control your costs in the middle. The example I always give out is if you go out today and you wanted to buy a Ram 1500 at a local dealer, you'd probably pay around $37,000 if you were just one of us. But as a government entity, you might get anywhere from $9,000 to $10,000 off in rebates and incentives, and you might be able to buy that truck for $27,000. Because government entities don't do a lot of mileage typically on their vehicles, you might have some of your sheriff's vehicles, maybe some certain roads vehicles that do anywhere from 15 to 20,000 miles a year, but majority of your fleets probably most likely doing anywhere from 5 to 10,000 miles per year. You can run that vehicle for 2 or 3 years and then turn around and sell it back out in the open market for almost for what you bought it for, sometimes more. And we have a lot of examples where we're selling vehicles back for more than what the government entity bought it for. What this allows them to do is to run a younger fleet, a safer fleet with today's fuel economy, today's technology, with better maintenance. I mean, when you have a brand new truck and you roll it off the lot, the first 20, 30,000 miles, you're doing preventative maintenance, maybe one set of brakes, one set of tires. And then you turn around and you sell that vehicle, it's still under warranty, it's still in good condition. You take advantage of the fact that it's worth something still. Whereas the model that most people run, typically, is you buy the vehicle, you pay cash, and then you run it until the wheels fall off and you try to auction it or get rid of it at a certain point in time. So we're trying to change the culture in that capacity. Go ahead.
I have a question because, I've had some dealings with a very dear friend of mine's owned several large dealerships.
Sure.
What makes you different than me going to, for argument's sake, a Ford dealership and letting them do a big fleet lease with me? Many of those dealerships will sell vehicles well under their flooring or their costs, because of course they're going to be guaranteed all the warranty work. So what do you offer more than someone like a Ford on a fleet lease, a large fleet lease would offer?
Yeah, so 2 things there. One is the reason a dealer and us can provide you a great buy in a vehicle is not because we're us or they're the dealer. It's because the manufacturer allows you as a fleet, you have a fleet code in essence, making you a government entity, and that's why you get those rebates and get those deals. It has nothing to do with us or the dealer. I can't buy a vehicle any better or worse than probably you can today. That's not really the intention. But what we'll do that's different than them, and I'll give you an example of that, is The first thing we do when we're looking at a vehicle for one of our customers is what's the right tool for the job. You go down to a local Ford dealer, they're going to sell you a Ford. What if I offered you a Ram or a Chevy or a Ford? We're agnostic. We don't care what manufacturer you go with. If you prefer a Ford, go with a Ford. But if a Ram's going to cost you 3 or 4 cents less per mile to run over the same amount of time, or maybe a Chevy would, then why wouldn't we try to at least offer that up to you? And I'll give you a great example of that. We recently partnered with Jackson County last year. They had a policy in place for the last 30 years that they only bought Ford or Chevy. Someone went out and bought a Toyota 30 years ago and angered someone, and they have a policy written because they'll never do that again. However, technology's changed a lot. Vehicles have changed a lot. Most vehicles aren't made here anymore, unfortunately. And so we offered up a Nissan Pathfinder to replace a Ford Explorer. It was $3,000 less expensive than the Ford Explorer. Does the same thing. It drives you from A to B. It's a motor pool vehicle. It's not like the vehicle's going off-road. The Ford Explorer and the Nissan Pathfinder are the same size, just a less expensive option. So to answer the first part of your question, that's one. We provide, again, just analysis on what's going to be the best vehicle to buy and what's the best vehicle to sell at the end of the day. So this type of analysis here takes into consideration not only acquisition cost, but what we think would maintain it, how it takes to fill it up, what's the miles per gallon on the vehicle, and what do we think the resale value would be at the end to produce a cents per mile. So that's step number one. We can always buy from a local dealer too, just so you know. A lot of our customers prefer to buy from local dealers, and that's no different than what we can do. So that's step number one. Two is we sell the vehicle for you. I don't know if you've ever had to trade in a vehicle at a dealership before, but trade-in values are never what the resale value of an actual vehicle may be. And so we sell 1 million vehicles per year. So we're coming in, we're taking your vehicles, we're selling them on your behalf, and we're trying to capitalize the most amount of money we can. We just went through this with one of our other accounts. They were trading in vehicles because it was easy. But us picking up the vehicle and selling it for you as well is just as an easiest process. But if I can sell it for 10, 15, maybe sometimes 20% more than what you can trade it in on or auction it on, then that's just more equity and value coming back to the county. If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you.
Another thing that we do is how long you should hold on to the vehicle. Again, you can go down to a local dealer and buy a vehicle and pay cash and hold on. You can lease it and hold on to it as long as you like. But are they sitting down with you on a year-to-year basis, running through your fleet, offering recommendations, offering analysis to tell you how long you should probably hold on to your vehicles? So in this situation here, we took the same exact F-150 and just spanned it out over a 5-year period to get us to a cents per mile. And what's interesting on this model, the numbers are kind of small, but we went out and bought this F-150 for $25,000, and then a year later we sold it for $300 more than we bought it for this particular client. And again, we have a lot of examples like that. So while I'm not saying that is in our program that you're required to replace vehicles exactly when we tell you to, at the end of the day, it's your ultimate responsibility and decision-making process to hold on to vehicles as long as you like. However, if we show you there's not a financial reason to hold on to a vehicle past a certain year, then we're just going to recommend that to you, and at the end of the day, it's all up to you. We don't know what's going on with your budgets or what you're all doing on a day-to-day basis. Every vehicle has a different holding pattern. If you're putting $15,000 on the back of a truck because it needs a service body and some other, a crane and all that, you're not going to hold on to that for 3 years. You're going to hold on for 10, 12, 13 years, right? But the core of your fleet, and you're already doing it with your sheriff's fleet because your sheriff's fleet's not that old. So you're already cycling vehicles out quickly with your sheriff's fleet. It's no different than what we do for the rest of your fleet. And to your point, Sue, earlier, we can do the same thing for police units. We just partnered with City of St. Helens, and we did 11 police units out the gate for them. So we can do it either way.
I guess my underlying question is, would it be cheaper for us to do it this way with you or on our own?
The argument could be made that you can't do it on your own, and I don't mean that in a facetious way or in a mean way. It's just
because I know our sheriff just directly orders from wherever he orders.
And that's what we would do too. We would
have no idea on, if he could get a better deal or.
No, I mean, it just depends. Like, you have an option today to go out and stroke a check for $100,000 to buy 2 or 3 vehicles. But what if you could spend $100,000 in lease payments and get 15 vehicles? And how does that overall affect your overall cost? Not just what you're acquiring and what you're selling for, but what you're spending in between. The real cost of a vehicle is fuel and maintenance. It's not the acquisition cost. So how do we minimize your operating costs on a vehicle? How do we get you to safer vehicles at a cost savings or cost neutral? Go ahead.
And that's kind of how I see this from a county standpoint. Like you say, we don't have a lot of high miles vehicles, especially in our motor pool. So it might make sense for us to lease vehicles versus purchase.
Yeah. It might not be every vehicle in your fleet that you go on a leasing program with, correct. And another great example, Jackson County started with their motor pool. City of St. Helens started with their police because they had a need for it. And it doesn't really matter as to how you start. Everything that we do for our clients starts with the acquisition of a vehicle. So,
Commissioner Boyce?
any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Alford, thanks for making the trip down here.
Yes, sir.
When we first started talking several months ago, I went to Commissioner Sweet, coincidentally, in Coos County. And so I've already checked your reference. They are very happy with the service you're providing. You referenced early in the conversation a 13-year-old car. We actually have about 4 of them in the lot, and it has not been a problem for me. In fact, as new commissioner, I was going to make sure you inherited at least one of them. So I did not know you were working with Jackson County.
Yeah.
And so that is, that could be beneficial to us too, and just what we can learn from them. And related to you, this whole thing originated because when I first got here, and you certainly recognized it early on when you came aboard, we have a lot or two with a lot of cars that sit idle. And so, yeah, I was pretty anxious to get in touch with you and say, hey, how do we turn this to cash and money in the bank? And then also Commissioner Pash worked with Roadmaster Christensen. So getting the two of you together, it seems like might be a wise approach. And I'm just enthused. I didn't want to cut off your presentation.
Go ahead, please.
But yeah, we have a lot of vehicles that we don't need. I think some of them have value. A lot of them have, of course, minimum value. So, yeah, anxious to proceed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If I could, are you? I don't want to interrupt the presentation, but
yeah.
I would like Roadmaster Christensen to possibly interject here and come forward and talk about, you know, what he found in our motor pool, and it'll give you some information, and perhaps you two could get together. You could meet him at his offices later and talk about it some more.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
So he's coming up maybe in a month. We'll have possibly a presentation of some sort.
Yes. Just so everyone knows, when I learned about this, I called our roadmaster and asked him if he could do an inventory, a physical inventory on our current motor pool, and assign different categories to the motor pool if they were still viable, if he thought we needed to sell them, to keep them, and what we should do. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Yes, Monday morning, Commissioner Pash asked me to do an audit of all the motor pool vehicles except for the Sheriff's Department, and so we did that. And one of the things I noticed doing this audit is maybe we haven't reduced our fleet in motor pool as we have reduced staffing. So we have more vehicles than we need. And so what I did was look at the oldest vehicles, the ones with the lowest use, and came up with auctioning off through public surplus like we normally would do 4 of our older vehicles, and taking 4 of the ones currently being low used by other departments and put them into the motor pool where we'd get more use out of them. And so that way, instead of being like some of these in the last 6 months, maybe have a few hundred miles of use, where if they were in a motor pool where other people could use them, or other departments, we could get that usage up. And also there's been other departments that said they need 4-wheel drive vehicles to do their work from time to time. So if some of these vehicles I'm talking about, 2 of them, are putting them into the motor pool, so when they did have work in rural areas, there would be a 4-wheel drive that they would be able to reserve for that work. And you know, I'm not sure, in the road department and government, we're not for profit, and so everything in that cycle that was shown by Enterprise, we do perform, but it's at no cost. I mean, we're not trying to make money. All we're doing is taking care of staffing costs and the materials costs. So I don't know where that all plays out, and we do tend to run our vehicles till the wheels fall off. So there's something to be said about that as well. I think we should, you know, could we look more into it with enterprise, sure, we can do that. And see if there's a cost savings to the county in the short term and the long term. Talking with Louise Kallstrom in the past with the school district, when they had gone to leasing vehicles, it's something where you jump in, you can't really jump back. It's like once you lose your fleet, you lose your fleet. So it's something to consider as well.
All right.
Thank you.
I think he's still needs a little time, I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So to hit on a few things there, one is very common to see what we call underutilized fleet. I don't have your actual mileage data on your vehicles today, so I can't anticipate which ones are being underutilized. Another common thing you'll see is called right typing your fleet. So it's very common for counties and cities to what we call waterfall vehicles down to department to department to department, and then you end up seeing someone in an admin office driving a 1998 Suburban that gets 8 miles per gallon when they really should be driving a Ford Focus that gets 31 miles per gallon. It's pretty common. So getting in deeper into your fleet and being able to provide you a better recommendation, there might be a lot of that right typing and vehicles that are just not the right tool for what you're being used for anymore. It's pretty common.
So could I make a suggestion that possibly you and Mr. Christensen could get together, meet, and exchange information? He could possibly give you a listing of our fleet.
Yes.
And then could we set this up for a workshop in a few weeks that we could all get back together and see what we can do? I mean, information is good, so yes.
Thank you again. Would you be able and willing to come down from Portland again?
I'm always able and willing.
Okay. I didn't want to volunteer you, but
yeah, no.
I think we just did.
I do want to show you one real quick thing, though, just that type of analysis I would like to put together for you all. This is all based off industry averages at the moment, but we took your entire fleet, including sheriffs, vehicles that we would be utilizing. You have 65 vehicles that are kind of in our niche. 27 of those 65 vehicles are 10 years or older. You could probably argue maybe 8 of those are underutilized and don't even need to be replaced, and you just need to sell them off and get rid of them, surplus them. But this is the type of analysis that we put together for our other government clients. We did the same thing for Jackson County, and we did the same thing for Coos County. And this is a financial analysis for basically cash outlay. And it's just comparing to what you're doing today compared to what you look like under a lease structure. So in our lease structure, just real quickly to kind of give you an idea of it, you're never locked into our lease. So at any given time you want to get out of the lease, you can always just get out of the lease. There's no termination fees, there's no cancellation fees, anything like that. Just so you know. But the idea behind this model is to take what you're averaging, which, today you're averaging about 7 vehicles a year. Your average purchase price, this is not including aftermarket equipment on sheriff's vehicles, things of that nature. We did $110 per month per maintenance based off the age of your fleet. You want to dial that in and see what your actual maintenance cost may be. Fuel cost based off the age of your fleet at 13 miles per gallon. We're thinking you're averaging spending about $383,000 on a budget per year, acquisition, operating, and fuel costs. That's not including labor, shop, things of all that. And then we look at how will we get into this program? What would it look like if you were leasing vehicles versus purchasing vehicles? How does that offset your maintenance costs? How does that offset your fuel costs? What's your overall net cash outlay? So just doing a very simplistic version of this using your fleet today on a very rough estimate, we're saying over a 10-year period, we could save you anywhere from $379,000 overall over a 10-year period just by utilizing into a lease program, selling at the right time. It doesn't mean that you can't maintain the vehicles internally still. You can still do that. It doesn't mean you can't use your fuel, can't insure them the same way you've always insured them. This is just if you bought and sold through us. So that's basically the nutshell of it all.
Mr. Boyce?
I'm not opposed to a workshop. I think what might be a good way to approach this is have one commissioner work with he and the roadmaster, and they could even do that by phone and email. And then when they come back to the board, we might actually have something that we can assess early on and then perhaps vote on. And if you want to do a workshop, then I could even getting the public involved might be beneficial. But either way, I would be content.
That would be my recommendation, is getting together some capacity with your roads, maybe in your sheriff's department, see what they're coming up from a budget cycle. Get your finance team involved, quite honestly, so they can put together some initial lease pricing so they can learn how to, from the budget perspective, how it would affect them. That's how we did it with the other counties and cities. At the end of the day, you'll know what your pricing is going to be, what we're recommending, which vehicles you'll be utilizing. And so when we come back, we have more of a full package. I can send the agreements over to John so he can start, at least an initial review of our RFP to make sure that there's something funny there, and that way when we come back, it's kind of everything's ready to rock and roll for you guys versus, make makes sense.
I think I'd want more information before I get into the voting stage, so a
Absolutely.
workshop.
Yeah, that's not.
Well, why don't we do this? Excuse me. Mr. Boyce recommended, Commissioner Boyce recommended that perhaps he get with Mr. Christensen and Enterprise and, excuse me, and get more information, and we can bring it back for a workshop at your bequest.
Mr. Chair, your recommendation, including the sheriff, or I think that's, so there's 4 we would have at the meeting. A sheriff representative, I think that's a very good idea.
Sheriff representatives would be good, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if we could save the county money however we can, that's great.
All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
So we'll coordinate that with, can you coordinate that with Mr. Boyce? Yes, sir. While we're on the subject, I would like to call Mr. Christensen back up.
Uh-oh.
We do have a need, as he mentioned, for a vehicle, a 4x4 vehicle for our surveyors, and we also need one for code enforcement. I've spoken with both of them this morning in hopes that they could share a vehicle, because the enforcement part of the code is mostly in the evenings and weekends, where surveying is during the week, daytime. Code enforcement was for it, surveying was not, because they said it would be a burden for them to come up here every day from Brookings, pick up the truck. I would like to try and work something out with both of those to transfer with this board's approval.
I think Dave lives in Brookings, so it seems the transfer could take place in Brookings rather than coming up here. So.
And that's what I mean, if we can work something out. You did line number 13, which is ID 13128. It's a 2013 Ford F-250 4x4. They both need a 4x4. Surveying, is up in the Chetco Bar Fire Scar on some of those back roads, and of course, code enforcement, you never know where they're going to end up, so.
Right, and so if that were a pool vehicle, I think all the department heads need to get together
Right.
and determine their needs and see if there's a way that we can make it work.
I would like to work in the next few weeks, month with you and the board to clean up the motor pool, and let's stage some vehicles that we're going to downsize to. But this vehicle, could we move forward with moving this vehicle over to the motor pool immediately, so that, the vehicle in the last 6 months has had 317 miles put on it. It's a vehicle from Juvenile, and we can put this vehicle to work.
That was just the last 6 months, and I'm not sure why that is the case. I wasn't able to talk with Wendy Lang yesterday, and so there may have been much higher use in the past.
Right.
And there may be a reason why of the low use.
That's it?
I just have one comment.
Yes.
Possibly this could be worked out at the department head meeting, which is on the 22nd,
Okay,
That works.
Tuesday.
that's fine. Commissioner Boyce?
I don't think that would need to be on that budget, that agenda, but are you talking about the blue Ford that Director Trost used to drive?
I'm not sure, maybe.
Big blue, yeah, that was the one that was assigned to Parks. But we also, Mr. Chair, pardon me?
This one was from Juvenile. Of course, Trost might have had it for Parks as well.
Combined.
Yeah.
But we also have a couple four-wheel drives in this lot over here. One's a Chevy and one is a Jeep. I'm sure they're four-wheel drives.
Right.
Anyway, for what that's worth, yeah.
That's in the building department, those two vehicles, and they have high use, and
Right.
so I recommend not putting those into the motor pool.
They haven't moved forever.
Well, why don't we schedule this then for the department head meeting on the 22nd?
Yeah, I think
And
that
that way
would
we'll
be a
have
better
everyone
use
in the
of
same
time.
room, and we can get this worked out.
Thank you.
Mr. Christensen, thank you for your work on this and your time. Thank you. All right, next we're going to go to the consent agenda. Number 3 is the 8th Amendment to Oregon Health Authority.
I move that we approve the entire consent agenda as written.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, coming in late on this, the only question I have is on the advisory committee, Bud Randell.
Let me explain what that's all about, because I was involved in that. One of the members of the Curry Transit Advisory Committee passed away, and so they need someone on there.
Okay. All right, do we have a second? Any further questions? Discussion? Okay, call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to the regular agenda. Number 7, repeal travel ordinance, first reading emergency. Council Huddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really don't have a lot to add about this. This is a follow-up. I think it was direction from the last meeting, and the board said bring something back repealing that travel ordinance. And this is the first step in getting a new, policy and procedures in place, is to repeal this. And because it's an ordinance, unless it's adopted as an emergency by unanimous vote, it requires 2 readings. So this is the first reading.
And so I have one question. You're in the process of coming up with a travel policy that would include accountability for travel?
Yes.
Okay.
And what the AGRS here says is if this is repealed and until further action, the per diem and mileage reimbursement rates of the employee personnel regulations would apply. So it gives us guidance there while we're in betwixt and between.
Okay, so we would be accountable just like employees are?
On the mileage reimbursement
Okay.
and meals, yes.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Boyce.
Yeah, that comes up quite often about accountability, as if there's been a lack of accountability. If I may address the board, there's a stack of papers over there. Not to mention that I continually brought information back. I kept absolute excellent records. I put that on my portion of the county website so people can go and look at every single purchase, as I mentioned last meeting, excuse me, of all the personal amount that I paid and every bit that was paid by the county. So I'm all for accountability. I'd love to have accountability on every dime that's been spent with this county for attorneys, certainly Prothman advertising, and the list is staggering, and it's thousands of dollars. So my meager travel, as I assume it's directed at me, and the job I had to do, I would love to have and suggest we should all have incredible accountability to explain to the citizens how and why we voted a certain way. And we can stop that loss of funds down the road. Sooner the better. Thank you.
Okay.
So if I could, what we have here is, this is in the matter of an ordinance repealing Article 1, Division 19 of the Curry County Code regulating elected official travel. And it says the Board of Commissioners of Curry County ordains as follows. This ordinance shall be known as, and we'll assign an ordinance number to it, and it's an ordinance amending the Curry County Code. And the findings are the current Article 1, Division 19 of the Curry County Code, Ordinance 1804, is entitled Regulating Elected Official Travel, authorizing only reasonable and necessary travel expenses, and implementing enforcement per Article 10, Division 1 of the Curry County Ordinances, and declaring an emergency. The second finding is at a meeting of the Curry County Board of Commissioners January 7, 2019, the Board of Commissioners unanimously requested an ordinance repealing ordinance number 18-04 due to the importance and necessity of elected official travel be submitted for consideration at the January 16, 2019 meeting. And then the findings are that the Curry County Board of Commissioners repeals ordinance 1804. The repealer language, Article 1, Division 19 of the Curry County Code concerning regulating elected official travel, is repealed in its entirety, effective immediately. And then it says, to the extent necessary, any rules, orders, or governing elected official travel are repealed until further action, ordinance, order, or resolution of the Board of Commissioners. Commissioner travel will be subject to the per diem and mileage reimbursement rates in the personnel manual. And then it has an emergency clause saying that it's an emergency. The ordinance shall be in full force and effect on its passage. And that's a request to make a motion to adopt.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adopt?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
A second?
I'll second that.
Any comments? Question?
Aye.
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 Good word, Council Huddle.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, next is Commissioner Liaison Assignments proposed. Commissioner Boyce.
Thanks to Commissioner staff getting everything lined up here. I think you both have had time to review. This was a tentative proposal that I recommend. It's based off a couple of years. If we do, I presume, approve the new Director of County Operations, that person may be able to take some of these, what I believe are very important tasks. So it's subject to board review here and hopeful adoption or approval.
Commissioner Gold.
A couple of small comments under Commissioner Boyce. Southern Oregon Workers Investment Board of Directors was listed twice.
Yeah, I saw that as well.
That must have been Mr. Jesuit. Certainly I didn't make that mistake.
Okay, and then under myself, I've also been working with the Regional Solutions team, and that was not listed anywhere in this.
Actually, Commissioner Gold, I'm sorry. I did have that originally on your list. I'm surprised it's not on there, so I certainly...
Well, maybe it got down at the bottom of the page.
I have no disagreement.
AJ again.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that is... I'm going to add it to mine right now. And it was originally on there, and I think that's good. Thank you.
All right, any other comments on this? So are we looking to adopt this then?
Yes, it would be a motion to adopt.
Can I get a
Action
motion
item.
to adopt?
I'll move that we accept this list and vote to approve our county commissioner and department liaison responsibilities and assignments.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any further comments?
I just have one question when we're talking about libraries and schools and I guess some of this other stuff. I have talked to the superintendents of schools, SWAC superintendent and stuff like that. Is that what you're referring to, or were you referring to going to every single meeting, or?
To the extent that we can, when it comes to the Chamber of Commerce's, city councils, port districts, I think that's part of our responsibility, and I appreciate...
Certainly been to a lot of school board meetings.
That's why I put you on that list, because I think you have expertise there that can be valuable to the board and a connection that would be beneficial to us all. And I thank you for mentioning SWAC. That inadvertently got left out. I think we both had...
Well, that's part of the schools.
I think we both had a lot of activity and work there with the past campus director and certainly the present one, and as well Patty Ellis in Coos Bay, the SWAC main campus.
So when you talk about schools, I have had recent communication with the SWAC dean there in Curry County, so I'll be happy to continue that.
All right, any further comments?
So we're adding that to the list, Mr. Chair, I think.
I don't think it needs to be added. School works. They're a school.
So Curry School District Boards, which would of course include Central Curry and North Curry, plus SWAC.
Right.
Okay. I'm just going to make a note. Thank you.
Anything further? Question?
Aye.
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 Okay, adopting Director of Operations job description, John Huddle.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chair. If I'm not mistaken, this goes...
We're moving down, I'm sorry.
Yep, good.
As is 8C.
Thank you.
Number 9 is proposed 2019-2020 fiscal year calendar. Louise Colstrom. Good morning again, Ms. Colstrom.
Good morning, Louise Colstrom, County Accountant. I think a little piece of that title got, it's the proposed budget calendar. It kind of looks like a school calendar for when you're going to attend school. So last week we had the proposed budget calendar for doing the 2019-2020 proposed budget. We had it on the consent agenda, which didn't give anybody a chance to talk about any conflicts they may have on any of the dates in the calendar. So I wanted to give anybody a chance to weigh in on the dates that we're going to be meeting with the Budget Committee. The department head meetings are between myself and each department head, and that this is a schedule that I'm going to set up, but if they can't, if somebody's on vacation that week or something, that can be rescheduled in the next week. It's not a formal meeting date. It's just a time where I'm going to have certain things done and have certain conversations.
Commissioner Gold,
I'm fine with the calendar. I checked my calendar and we're good.
as am I.
Good work, Ms. Kallstrom. Thank you.
And hopefully the Budget Committee would have told me if they had any conflicts with the dates. Okay, so this is going to be, if you want to approve this, then I will post this on the website as an adopted budget calendar.
I move that we approve the proposed 2019-20 fiscal year budget calendar as presented by Accountant Kallstrom.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further comments? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, next we're going to go to supplemental budget, membership dues, Ms. Kallstrom.
Are these under the public hearing?
The first one is not.
First one's not. Okay. I
There
apologize.
are 4 that are under public hearing. This one did not require a public hearing. It actually doesn't really even require a supplemental budget, but we talked about it last week, and it probably will look better on the financials if we do this. The reason it doesn't require a supplemental budget is it's actually moving within an appropriation level, materials and services under non-departmental from one line item to another. That doesn't usually require, and I don't usually do that, but in the interest of showing that the costs that are being put into that line item are covered, I think that it's probably a good idea we go ahead and do this budget transfer.
That we approve supplemental budget number 7? Membership dues?
Do I have a second?
Yeah, with discussion later, yes.
Okay. Comments? Discussion?
Well, I can't get it to come up on the screen here. Oh, there it goes. I didn't understand membership dues. Did I miss something there?
These are memberships into the AOC, the LGPI, ONC, NACO, and last year we also paid the Community Renewable Energy Association $100. It also includes the $990 to pay this year's for the road fund to the AOC. The memberships also, as we discussed last week, the membership in the AOC has been, I don't know what's been going on with it, with the prepay and some weird not paying them until the following year after they were, but we paid in July, we paid for 2018 calendar year. And we recently got the bill for the calendar year 2019. And what I want to do is pay that in this year, although another year has already been paid out of this year, and set the budget next year for what we're going to pay on an annual basis and just pay those dues on a calendar year base in January when they are billed.
So we're getting billed on a calendar year. I didn't know that.
We are getting billed on a calendar year, but we're not really, we didn't pay, I think, I kind of looked over the memo from AOC again, and they are, I think that they are billing for a calendar year, but not until later in the year, much later in the year. So I don't know why we didn't pay the 2018 that starts in January 2018. We didn't pay that until July of 2018. So it's in this year's budget. It should have been in last year's.
Commissioner Boyce.
Thank you. I do have a couple more. You mentioned the road fund membership dues. What was that amount again? And then I have a follow-up.
They decided in the meeting last week to take the $9,895.64 and divide that into over 10 years. So the 2018-19 payment would be $989.57.
Great, thank you. The other thing, I understand why you might be a little bit confused. The way we concluded it last meeting on how we were going to try and fulfill our obligations there. So you help me understand and get clarified in my own mind. So do you have anything else that's and I did want to mention the NACO dues. That's $450. I mean, it's almost embarrassing to say, do any of that. I just didn't.
It's already been paid for this year.
I would recommend that we're just not going to use that unless you plan, like I said last meeting, get on a plane and fly to wherever. It's just the bigger counties will assist us on that free.
That one has already been paid.
Oh, it has?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
For this year, but if you don't want to budget it for next year, then won't budget it.
One question, I noticed that a lot of our fee schedules for like business licenses and that are all run on a fiscal or on a calendar year, not a fiscal year. Would you prefer those to be on a physical basis?
Well, what I do is, what I've always done is, if something's being run on a calendar basis and billed that way, then it's just expended in the year that it is paid. If it's, sometimes you get a bill that's due by the end of June, but it's dues for the next fiscal year. Those are put into prepaid as they're paid, and then they're expensed in the year that they're for. But these calendar year ones that are in January, I would rather just not play this prepaid expense over a 2-year period. If you just pay it in the year that it's due, then you get the same impact to your expenditures.
Would you be able to provide a list of the ones that are running on calendar years for us to look at?
I really, over the whole county,
Be difficult.
that would be a really difficult thing to do. I think this is the main one because it's the largest amount, and I could talk to Sina about what we can look at for other ones where paying on a calendar basis, but I'm pretty sure in other instances that's what we're already doing, because I haven't seen a lot of these dues being prepaid, put into prepaid for a half a year when we're paying the bills, because I look at the line items and the account numbers for when I review bills.
Okay. Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, I have a motion and a second. Call for the question.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Ms. Colstrom. I'd like to say, given the hour, we're 9 minutes to noon. Why don't we go ahead and break now for lunch and start back at 1 o'clock, and that way there we can have a fresh start.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Boyce?
We have former County Administrator John Hitt in the audience, and he's been pretty quiet. I just want to recognize him and say hello.
I saw him raise his hand a while ago. I didn't know if he was waving or what.
Oh, please, sure. Mr. Chair, yes, please. I wanted to ask about the towers earlier, and
yes.
I didn't want to put you on the spot without... Yes, thank you.
I do. You both asked real good questions. One, Mr. Chairman, about financing. We started to work on this while I was interim county administrator. I actually had gone out and talked to other service providers. I'll let your question, Commissioner Gold. And all of the preliminary, now I didn't get a formal bid from the other service providers, but I did get kind of ballpark where they said, you know, probably this range to this range. In every case, they were higher than Day Wireless. Right, and really hadn't had as much experience in our area, particularly with our terrain, as obviously Day Wireless. And then on the financing, Day Wireless as a company actually had a pretty good financing proposal where we could, I guess it somehow got taken out, but it was part of my very early preliminary budget to include starting replacing that microwave backbone, and then ultimately replacing the whole system. And I think it was like a 3 or 4 year plan to totally replace the system, which we could finance over, I think they had a 7-year financing plan. Fairly competitive, and I'm just kind of pulling numbers from my head, so if I'm way off here, forgive me, but I believe it was around 4%, 4.5% perhaps. Yeah, we were also going to look at getting financing through the state of Oregon, which I wasn't able to do before I left, or a financing proposal. So I do just want to say I agree with the sheriff and with the Day Wireless individual. These are systems that desperately need to be replaced. And I think if you proceed with Day Wireless, you can proceed with them with confidence, A, that they know what they're doing, and B, that they are very cost competitive. So just wanted to give you my own experience there.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Good to see you.
We're in recess until 1 o'clock. That gavel wasn't intended for you.
It was.
Well, you know what you can do? Just
Tie a knot?
around like this.
Yeah.
Because you're right.
No, don't tie it around your throat and let me tie it.
All right,
tighten it
order.
for you.
Order.
Charles is ready. Thanks, Charles.
Now we can start. Jane made it.
I was just going to say.
So did you find what you needed? Oh, okay. I was just going to say. Later.
All right, we're back in session. It's 1 o'clock. And let me pull up our...
We're on supplemental budgets, I believe. Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
I just want to pull up my computer screen here. It didn't... Oh, there it is. Got the wrong screensaver on here to see anything else. All right, so the next item will be supplemental budget hearing number 11 for commissioners. Louise Colstrom.
Hello, hello.
There you go.
So Louise, are you going to present?
I'll do them separately,
Okay, thank you.
so that we don't get the mix-up we had before where we combine two.
Thank you.
So the first one is for the Commissioner's supplemental budget. There's 2 exhibits. Exhibit A is to establish a $15,000 increase in the Commissioner's Fund for travel. And Exhibit B provides the $15,000 from non-departmental, the other materials and supplies, which is the kind of a line items for needed expenditures. So that's that one.
Okay, can I get a motion?
You'd have the, you did open the public hearing for public comment?
No,
Well,
I'm
we
sorry.
did that this morning, I believe.
Oh, well, we asked if anyone was here this morning
Okay.
just for continuing.
Let's do that then. Is there anyone here for a public comment? No one.
So you can close the public hearing on this item.
All right, so we're closing it. Can I get a motion, please?
I'll move, Mr. Chair, that we accept this supplemental budget adjustment.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
Any further comments? Your question?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and then number 12, vehicle replacement supplemental budget.
So, this one is also another hearing item, since the adjustment's over 10%. It is, I guess, do we have any public comment on this one? Or is this, are we going to open and close hearings for each one?
Right, that's, you said you're going to do them separate. That's what was part of what I was asking before.
Okay.
Is there any public comment for this one, for the number 12 vehicle replacement? Having none, I close public comment.
Question? No. Comment, I'm sorry.
Comment from Mr. Boyce.
If I say question means I'm ready to vote, I'm ready to vote, but...
I haven't explained it yet.
yeah, I was going to say that I probably need to ask a question then, thank you.
Okay, so the vehicle replacement, when we budgeted in the Sheriff's Department for the 4 additional officers, we budgeted for 4 additional vehicles for the Sheriff's Department for those officers, and we have the budget in the Sheriff's Department to buy those vehicles. However, vehicles are purchased out of the Vehicle Replacement Fund. The sheriff would bring in the money for those vehicles, and then they are purchased here to keep all of our vehicle assets in one place instead of spread throughout the budget. We did not budget for that in this particular fund. So in order to purchase the 4 vehicles, we need to increase the capital outlay line by the $200,000, which is the 4 vehicles, and then increase the transfer from the sheriff for the $200,000.
So move, Mr. Chair.
I have a second.
I'll second that with discussion.
Okay.
Okay, originally this was budgeted. Did this just kind of end up in the wrong place and then we have to put it in another place? Or?
No, it's actually, you should be budgeted in 2 places. One is budgeted to purchase the vehicles in the sheriff's fund. But the sheriff, their line item in the sheriff's department is a transfer to this fund to actually purchase the vehicles.
Okay, that makes sense then.
So did their office forget to not transfer that over, or?
No, they have the budget in the sheriff's department to transfer the money over to purchase them. But this fund was budgeted as status quo, and not taking into account that I mean, usually it's fine because we don't buy that many vehicles each year. But in this case, we are buying 4, and the budget is, in this vehicle replacement fund is not enough to do that.
Okay, but overall, the budget, the total's not changing. It's just a matter of
It's recognizing the revenue that will come over from the sheriff, and then recognizing
moving
the
from one
purchase.
place to another.
Yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And of course, if we don't get those 4 positions filled with the deputies, then this will be a carryover. Do I have that correct? I mean, I'm on...
The amount of vehicles that are purchased will, say you only purchase 2 vehicles this year, so he'll only transfer the dollars to purchase 2 vehicles and only purchase those 2 vehicles, but the budget is in place to do all 4.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, number 13, public health supplemental budget. Louise?
Hearing?
Are there anyone for the anyone here for number 13 for public hearing on public health? Seeing no one, I close the public hearing. Ms. Colstrom?
this supplemental budget is what happened last year was, I think it was sometime in early spring, the state decided to change the way that they do the pass-through to public health. They were doing a reporting system, I think, and transferring the funds to our contractor, Curry Community Health, and they decided to give us the money directly and then we transfer it to them. So last year we did a supplemental budget, I think it was in March, maybe April, to do a half year of the payments coming directly to the county. And we did a supplemental budget for a half year of $200,000. The actual was 183, I believe. So at that time, I did not think about the 18-19 budget, and that budget was also a status quo budget, did not account for that $400,000 that will be coming in the fiscal year 18-19. So we need to add $400 of revenue and $400 of transfer to payments.
$400,000.
$400,000.
Yeah.
Also, there was a one-time payment from the state for mental health for $57,000 that was not budgeted for. So this total supplemental budget is for $450,000. It's within the same fund, doesn't take anything from any other fund. It recognizes the $457,000 revenue and the in-out to CCH.
Can I ask why the mental health wasn't budgeted?
That was a one-time payment from the state on some funds that they had for a program that they no longer have, and they distributed the remaining funds.
All right. Can I have a motion to accept?
I'll move to accept.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to number 14, PEG Fund. Ms. Colstrom, let me ask first. I'm getting the hang of this. Is there any public, anyone here for public discussion on this? Public hearing? Noting no one, I close public hearing. Ms. Colstrom?
Okay, so when we set the budget for the Cable TV PEG Access Fund, we basically budgeted for $13,000 in fees coming in and $13,000 for capital purchases for PEG equipment. We didn't recognize the carryover and budget to spend any of the carryover. Basically, we were budgeting just to spend what came in that year. And that's another status quo type budget where that's what we have been doing for I don't know how many years of just budgeting for just the fees. However, we've been doing some projects for the PEG access, and so for 18-19, the project is doing some converters, and the total for that is estimated at $15,000, which is $2,000 over budget. And also there was there's a probability or possibility of doing something called a bulletin board. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but that's another $4,000. So if the planned expenditures are $19,000, I just rounded that up to 20 and did a supplemental budget for $7,000 for planned expenditures within this fund. And the carryover from last year into this year is $23,700.
Well, I move to accept supplemental budget number 6, the PEG Fund.
Have a second?
Second, Mr. Chair.
Any further comments? Question?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Colstrom. All right, next we're going to move on to announcements. It seems we have our press here. I would like to ask the press if they wouldn't mind publishing some of these. It's nice that some people don't get to attend these meetings and don't know that there are vacancies, and if we could get our local papers to publish some of this, it would really possibly help us to fill them. We have vacancies on the Ambulance Service Area Advisory Committee. It is a law enforcement position. We have a vacancy on the Planning Commission, 2 members for South County. Their terms are expiring April 1st of 21 and June 6th of 22. Building Codes Appeal Board is 8 members. County Compensation Board, 2 members with terms expiring December 31st of 2019 and December 31st, 2021. On January 23rd, 2019, we will have a special meeting at 10 a.m. here in the Commissioners' hearing room. January 30th, 2019, quarterly budget committee meeting at 10 a.m. here in the hearing room. February 6th will be a general meeting at 10 a.m. February 13th will be a workshop at 10 a.m. here in the hearing room. February 18th, the county offices will be closed for President's Day. And February 20th will be a general meeting here in the hearing room at 10 a.m. And if we can get our acting interim county administrator, John Huddle, to give us an update. Yes. I thought you said you were done.
I was done with that part. Louise Colstrom, County Accountant. I'd like to make a comment on the January 30th quarterly budget committee meeting. This was kind of being run by our former administrator, Mr. Schroeder, but what he had set up was to have the December financials handed out to the budget committee. I believe they're posted on the internet right now. And he wanted to have the structure changed a little bit on these meetings, in that instead of having all of the department heads come and the committee ask questions of the department heads, that we have the budget committee review those financials, formulate questions, allow us a little bit of time to get those answers ready for the meeting. And if you are going to request any of the department heads to be at that meeting, to let us know so we can schedule specific people to come.
So you're wanting to formulate the question, you're going to give us that information sooner, we can formulate questions, and then by then we can have those particular departments to attend the meeting.
So what I'd like to have is by next week, next Wednesday, the 23rd, to have questions that you would have formulated to be provided to the finance office to prepare for the meeting. And also, if you are going to require, because local budget law allows the budget committee to require anybody to attend a budget committee meeting, to let us know which department heads you're going to require to be at that meeting.
I think for this meeting that's coming up, I would probably like to see everyone be here. It's going to be a lot of changes happened. Hopefully we'll have Ms. Schmelzer here as well. So I think her interjection into this meeting and her asking questions could help direct the budget meetings down the road. I just think for this first one, I'd like to probably do it that way and have everyone in the room.
Okay, so I need to send out a schedule for everybody to tell me what time is best for them to attend. So I'll have and this will be basically then an all-day meeting. This is scheduled to start at 10. Last time we did everybody coming, we scheduled it at 9 so that we could get all of the department heads, and that was giving them only 10 minutes each to speak on their budgets.
Okay, can we stagger them so that we don't waste their time? They're all sitting here?
No, that's the timeline that I would hand out for everybody to tell me what time they would.
County Council?
Just a question. So just to clarify, Louise, you said at the last meeting we had all the departments and they presented.
We had most of them.
Sure, thank you. I agree. And then you asked the chair what his preference was, and he thought he would have the departments there. If I could clarify, I'm not understanding the chair to want the departments to actually present in any organized fashion, but because my thought was that because the budget committee will be taking such a broad look at the topics, they may just need those people there in the gallery to draw upon their experience during the process. So,
Okay, but to require all department heads to be here for a whole morning would basically clear the, usually what we do is we have them come at a scheduled time. Somebody's at 9:10, somebody's at 9:20, 9:30, and stagger them throughout the day so they only have to come and spend 15 to 20 minutes here in the hearing room rather than their whole morning.
Well, I'm wondering if we might be able to start the meeting with all department heads and have a 15-minute meeting with all department heads to kind of give them a direction of where we're going to go, and then stagger them in from there.
And just to be clear, these quarterly budget committee meetings, this one will probably, I believe that we were planning on having another one in April, the end of April, but that's just before the actual 1920 budget committee meetings in May, which is May. The first one is May, I believe.
Edward, I think a lot of this would be helpful, like I said, if we can have all departments here in the beginning and then we can move forward, because I would also like to see us move forward with a strategic plan for the county and through the departments. So, just information to everyone, and then we can give every department a direction of where we're going to look, and then as they come in, then we can ask individual questions.
Then we should have a notice out to all of the department heads and elected officials who are department heads to plan on attending that meeting, and you're still going to hold it at 10.
Mr. Boyce?
No, I like the 9 o'clock idea. I think
I like early. 9 o'clock
approach. The second thing, I'm not confident, not opposed by any means, I'm not confident we have a clear enough direction yet, or we'll have that direction established by, within 2 weeks to present to the department manager. So I might be overthinking or underthinking, but I think we're going to need more time on that. That's just my initial thoughts, Mr. Chair.
Well, I think let's leave it scheduled for right now for the 30th, and then if we need to, we can move it, but I don't think we're going to need to make any changes. I think we can be ready.
No, I'm not saying we needed to change the schedule. I'm just not sure if we're ready to present a specific plan yet, but
right.
Maybe you've been working on that.
Well, my understanding is that it would be an information gathering to do a strategic plan.
Okay, that was my original understanding.
Okay,
yes.
So
information and direction is what we're going to do with this.
Okay.
So we're changing the time for this to 9 o'clock rather than 10, and we'll need to get communication out to everybody to attend.
Is everyone fine with that?
It's fine with me.
Council?
Thanks. I thought if we're ready for the rest of the acting county administrator report.
Well, you have more to say? Go ahead.
Thank you. I did just want to say on the agenda with the announcements, I didn't see listed on there that this Friday, don't we have a meeting of the Citizen Revenue Task Force? Is this Friday? Is that in the Blue Room, JJ? And 2 p.m. So just wanted to let everyone know that. And then I'd also like to just thank John Jesuit and Brenda Starbird. We've had since the 7th, we've had this is our third meeting. JJ's prepared an agenda for the 18th, and we're working on one for the 23rd. So in a very short time, they've done a lot of work, and I just want to extend my appreciation to the BOC office staff.
Indeed. Very good job.
And you know, thank you. That's all I had.
All right, we have commissioner updates. Commissioner Boyce?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got some information over on the table there from the AOC Legislative Days on Monday, full day there. I need the mouse.
Here it is.
I can catch.
No.
No.
Don't trust me, dude.
I can't
trust you
throw.
throwing.
Drive a
No.
boat, I don't know about catching.
We're going to minus this out. This is a good reminder on why we, and there's several things I can report, and I'll try and go rather quickly without being rushed, because this is, I think, some beneficial information to us and our citizens, and a good reminders. On the state police, they have the same number of officers that they had in the 70s, and right now it's at about 450, which counts fish and game. And over the next 10 years, and I have some handouts here if anybody's interested, grab the wrong mouse here, but they're trying to budget for that, and compared to the rest of the country, I think the most interesting figure here real quick is 8 per 100,000 citizens. Within 10 years are trying to get up to 15 per 100,000 citizens. So Oregon population has doubled in, 30 years or less, and so they're really trying hard to catch up. I'm trying not to be biased. One of my sons has been with OSP for 16 years in drug enforcement, and so that was eye-opening. As it relates to AOC, they bring these speakers in, and then they follow the laws. They follow the budget through their chief executive officer there, Michael Eisen, and a lot of people are really following. One other bill we have here is Senate Bill 501. As it relates to Curry County, we're quite a Second Amendment county, the right to carry. And this bill, with a super majority in the House and the Senate, both Oregon legislature, and likely to have governor support, it would actually take and make 20 rounds a maximum that you could purchase in 30 days. It talks about jail time as possible retribution there. You can only have 5 rounds of maximum capacity. And so as we're looking at, and this is another thing come up with, that has to do with law enforcement and public safety, I'm getting to know commissioners better all the time, and they have the same problem we have with the state police and other law enforcement entities taking our deputies. And we pay to train them. And I should have assumed that, but to hear the commissioners speak of that, and a couple of us got our heads together and said we need to go to the legislature and say, hey, at the very least the counties need to be compensated. Here's the point, as you well know, there's a lot of competition for officers. You heard me say this morning the average age is 37, the ones that we're losing, and so to attract those people, to recruit those men and women to go into law enforcement is getting to be harder and harder to do. So in a rural area, people go, well, I hope I don't have to defend myself, but if I do, if the police can't get there, or we can't support, fight to protect the peace and our neighbors and the family, etc., then this law, as I understand it, albeit admitting I need to give it more, and I'm encouraging everybody, Senate Bill 501, and not just Curry County, but to the extent it could make us criminals. And there's a lot of force behind this law. It's got a lot of people turning their head. I could spend more time on it. I'll refrain from doing that today. But I want the citizens to know, do your research and make sure that I'm not giving you bad information here, and learn all that you can. And the next one is House Bill 2620, and I have from Marion County. They opposed this bill. Basically, it would have taken the authority from the counties and put it under all fire, or the chief fire department jurisdiction in those areas. And so everybody within AOC is opposed to this legislation. They want the county, this proposed legislation, they want the counties to be able to maintain their authority and appoint people to the proper boards, and but it still has some momentum. So my hat's really off to the AOC people for, we had a really good speaker on this, and I can give it to Staff Jesuit to put on our website, the Marion County resistance to this bill and summary is very good.
That's to appoint who? They're taking away the authority from the
You
counties?
put it under the fire departments.
Oh, fire departments.
Yeah.
Okay.
And initially it doesn't sound like it's without validity or legitimacy, but when you dig deeper, it does take the authority away from the counties, and there was almost unanimous opposition to that. Again, that is House Bill 2620. Real quick here, House Bill 2418, first responders related to stress on the job. And this has got opposition from the Oregon Sheriff's Association, CIS, County Insurance Services, and Workers' Comp, State Accident Insurance Fund, of course. And the best way to describe this briefly and in summarizing is, if someone, a first responder, wants to make a claim for being affected mentally by their job, it's almost by this bill, would almost be impossible to deny that claim. So the detriment to the counties could be staggering, and not just the small counties. That's certainly not to suggest that there aren't some legitimate cases out there that we all need to be aware of and help people that have seen or been exposed to awful things. But they're trying to relate a little bit to PTSD, and there's some real resistance, especially with CIS, but also the Oregon Sheriff's Association. And of course, when you have work-related stress as a commissioner, I wonder if maybe that will be covered. Last week, last meeting, and by the way, I just want to compliment the board. There's been a new energy here. There's been a willingness to have as many meetings. Certainly staff has been really anxious and diligent to stay with it and have a meeting every week so we can catch up, and it's just really been, I think, a benefit to all of us, and I just want to send out gratitude there. But I did mention that I would offer a report on the Oregon Coastal Zone Management Association. That represents the 7 coastal counties from Clatsop, Tillamook, Lincoln, Lane, Douglas, Coos, Curry, all the way down. I was talking to Council Huddle earlier. He's familiar with Rob Bovet, who is the primary legal counsel for Association of Oregon Counties, and he's agreed to take on this job of representing OCZMA. We had talked about a $4,000 dues. I'd forgot. I was asked to sit on this board by David Yamamoto, who is a Tillamook County Commissioner that I went to County College with, just an absolute prince of a guy. And he, you know, there's a lot of reasons in researching this and staying to my commitment to come back and report to the board. Within the 7 counties, anyway, it was hard to say no to him. He really wanted me to be on with nobody from Coos County, but we do have the 11 board member positions. We have a vacant spot on number 8, which will be representing all counties, but I think we have somebody that might be willing to fill that one of the Coos County commissioners. But jumping around too much, I'm sorry, but on our issues, as Bovet mentions, you know, his job is to represent the cities, county sports, even soil and water conservation districts, but everything has to do with the coast. Oregon is unique because we have these, as you all know, we have these unbelievably beautiful mountains, but then we have this cold Pacific Ocean that has so much potential, and yet it is, for commercial fishermen, it is a tremendous high-risk occupation to go out. And you had mentioned socially the other day, the first you heard of the boat that capsized, oh gosh, Newport, and 3 drowned. And then I was, you know, on the way to AOC the other day, I went through Newport just so I could have the coast drive, and I just happened to pick up the article which I was showing Matt Hall earlier during lunch, and it's unbelievable what that means and how that affects the community. I remember a year ago that David Brock Smith came in, we lost 3 in Port Orford. 2 of the 3 he knew very, very well, and it was a tough day to see his response and how that affected him. Abandoned in September 2016. We lost another 3 coincidentally, And so it's a pretty staggering list. Can OCZMA affect that through, you know, I do brag some about Congressman Peter DeFazio and the efforts that he's made consistently over the years to help the ports, the money for dredging. If anybody can push the Army Corps of Engineers on some of their projects, it is him, certainly our two U.S. senators as well. But anything we can do to make that occupation safer and less of an issue for the danger that they're exposed to, I'm on board. You know, when I said last week, I don't know if there's any one of the three of us commissioners that would commit to this. It is basically only 2 meetings a year, a lot of phone time. But with Rob Bovet's involvement, I'm very optimistic that it's kind of re-energizing a little bit here. And so, yes, I would like the board's approval to be involved in this. Of course, I was born here, lived on the ocean, or you know, in this coastal community my whole life. Maybe there's something that I can perhaps contribute. I know we don't have the $4,000, Mr. Chair. I would recommend that on OCZMA, maybe we can give them $1,000 now and look a few months from now to see if our budget's doing. They're not asking for that, and I would be a voting member. And again, I forgot that I had agreed, okay, I'll do this. Somebody's got to do it for Coos and Curry County. So, and that, now I'm actually looking forward to it, and maybe we can do $1,000. So I'll come back to that in just a minute. I also read last week the primary 5 issues that are important to Curry County. Of the 8 that they list are land use, natural resources, fisheries, economic development, and transportation, the condition of Highway 101. You know, I think I know enough about those 5 issues, hopefully, that I can offer something to, and this is impressive board, present company excluded. And so, yeah, I'm looking forward to working with them. So I might need a motion at some point to authorize that $1,000, or how we might go about that, or if we need to put it on a different schedule or meeting. The only other thing I have is just future items, and you referenced the evening meeting earlier today. As we discussed months ago, that I think that's a good thing for the citizens, and to the extent that staff can help us put that together, certainly Brant Media, the sources that we would have there to properly record, etc. As you know, building fees is still an issue with me. I think we need to bring up in the next couple of weeks. And the only other thing I have that I would mention today is the meal per diem allowance of $42. I'm not sure where that came from, but I think most of the folks that work for the county, they can survive pretty well on $10 or $12 a day. So I'm going to bring that up at some point, and I think that's a way for the county to save some money. And as you know, the 2 years I've only turned in a half a dozen $10 meals. So thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Colstrom?
Louise Colstrom, County Accountant. The amount that of the dues for the OC.
Yeah, it's a tongue tire.
CMA, yeah.
CMA, that Commissioner Boyce was just speaking of, would change 2 of our supplemental budgets that we just talked about. So if you are going to do something, I prefer to amend those budgets today rather than bringing back another supplemental budget at a later date.
I would suggest on the OCZMA that we just participate in the discussions for now, and then if those discussions are really fruitful, maybe next year put that in the budget. That's my suggestion.
I believe that's what we spoke of last week. That's why it's not in this budget right now.
Right.
Is that your recollection? We delayed it a year?
Yes. Last week we did.
Well, it's actually delaying it through the rest of this year, which is 6 months.
Good thing I didn't make any promises. Only one commissioner. That's okay. Don't worry. I won't feel like a cheap son of a gun. I'm sorry. I missed that. I thought we were going to delay the amount or the possible vote. till after I give my report, but that's okay.
I actually don't. My personal thought is I don't mind joining it. If you're going to be a voting member of it, that's important to the county. I don't mind joining it, and I would be willing to change mine on that. As we gave them $1,000 this year, and or maybe the rest down the road.
How about if we come back?
I believe the dues were $4,000.
I already told them that we wouldn't be able to do that. I was speaking for the board on a general sense there that I didn't think that was going to be likely, but
And the $1,000 would bring you a voting membership?
no, I'll still be a voting member. So that's not an issue. But if for your comment, we might want to come back in a couple weeks, a couple months.
So would
maybe
you
a full
be a
year.
voting member without the $1,000? Sounds to me like the group's kind of frayed at this point in time. Is that true or false? Or
Well, I'll tell you what, Commissioner Gold, I'll send you the information. You can contact them and see if you have a sense that they are frayed in some fashion. They've got some serious work to do, and so...
I'm not disputing that. I just took
I'll pay
from
the
your
$1,000
comments.
myself if the time comes and if that's what the board wants. No worries.
So why don't we table this for
Yeah.
a couple of weeks, and then we'll come back.
Even
to
a couple
it.
months,
Let's
you know,
leave
I
the
didn't make
supplemental
any-
budget the way it is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, and I understand that would be a tremendous headache for you now, so...
All right, Commissioner Gold.
I'll just make this short, sweet, and to the point. I met with Doug Bunn, who is the current dean of SWAC. We talked about a number of things, their lack of enrollment, how they could get classes to improve, also about the dual credit at the high school, which I'm highly in favor of at the high schools. And I'm going to be talking to the superintendents of Port Orford and Gold Beach to see where they're at in the situation, because I know that Brookings is really pushing forward on this, and it's good for students. So that's all I have today.
I guess my comments would be quick and very general. Most of them anyway. I'm a little bit humbled by the way county government works versus private business. It's a completely different animal. Sue, after sitting in your seat from last year for a couple of weeks, it gets a little different, let me say. But the biggest thing I wanted to say is I wanted to commend Commissioner Boyce for his committed work to this county. I was actually going to email this to you last week, and I decided to read it into the record. Your dedicated work to the constituents of this county. I've only been here for a little more than a week, and I'm excited for the work that I've done and the things that we're going to accomplish in the years to come. It's truly a team effort. The real reason for this letter is to say that I hope I can continue with the same resolve that you've displayed. I can't imagine sitting week to week in my office working hard to move things forward and always getting a 2-1 vote. It's been difficult, and it's wonderful to see this board start to work together. I just wanted to say I commend you for your diligence to keep going, and I admire you for staying the course.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Much appreciated. And begging the board's forgiveness, I forgot a very important item on my commissioner comments. So this has to do, and I will try and be very brief. And as we go into executive session, we're trying to figure out that new direction, and I think to amplify what you just mentioned, I was glad to see former Administrator John Hitt. I've talked to former Josephine County Commissioner Simon Hare, who I think you met, and Sid Lyken, who I want to talk a little bit about here today, and what I think would be a very good and important direction for the board. There's a lot of people out there that love this county, from outside this county, want to help, and they understand what we're up against. They understand that Curry County is the hardest hit county of the 36 in this area. As you know, I have mentioned a couple times I would like to hire on a contractual basis former Lane County Commissioner Sid Lyken, former mayor of Springfield prior to being a commissioner, and I want to read you just 3 small paragraphs here, if I may indulge the board. Lycan and Associates can be the conduit through which many governmental and private entities do business with Curry County. SID will foster collaborative and cooperative relationships with other local and regional governments and state federal agencies. With his hometown located in Lane County, he's only an hour away from Salem. It will allow him to work closely with Representative Brock Smith and Senator Hurt. 4, Curry County's legislative agenda. A solid advocate for our interests, it can efficiently save time, travel, and money for the Board of Commissioners. And after being in Salem, I don't dislike the drive. In fact, I went up the coast the first day, and it was, you know, it was a tremendous blessing. For the past 20 years, Sid Lycan developed strong relationship with members of 4 presidential administrations, senior agency leaders, key federal lobbyists, and members of our current and past national delegations. In Salem, with the governor's office, key members of the Oregon legislature, both Democrats and Republicans, and senior agency leaders as well. He has held leadership positions in transportation, natural resources, and economic development, both as a Lane County Commissioner and a Springfield Mayor. Under the direction of the County Board of Commissioners and our Director of Operations, his primary focus, in my view, should be to develop a 5-year budget and fiscal plan. His knowledge and background gained in both the private and public sectors, which you also just referenced, will be invaluable in our responsibilities to move Curry forward. Finally, something different that has not been tried yet, and it's a new spirit that I think he would contribute, and I think you're on board, and I believe that Commissioner Gold will be on board if she isn't already. In order for it to be effective, it must be a total team effort that includes not only us, the Board of Commissioners, but also key staffs, department managers, human resource, and community leaders. All could contribute to developing critical components of our Curry strategy and help create Curry financial planning and goals. Another real quick here. The issues facing Curry County. Forgive me, this will take just a minute. Curry County highest suicide rates. I'm just going to read the topics, but I want this to sink in. If the public's listening, we need your help on all these issues. Curry County highest unemployment of the 36 counties. That seems to be fairly consistent over the years, regardless of whether we're in good economic times or difficult. South Curry County Emergency Medical Facility. Growing homeless population. Curry Mills, future log supply shortages, sudden oak death disease. I don't know how to rate these. I mean, there's some real tough ones here. Curry Emergency Communication Network, that's been on the list a long time. Thank goodness we were able to talk about it today. Curry Invasive Species, I think we could talk about that for a while. County road infrastructure damage, sport, commercial, ocean and river fishing. We talked about the dangerous port entrances we have, almost with the exception of Brookings. Tourism, although the tsunami they had was pretty difficult in 2011. Tourism short and long-term damages, forest fire smoke and associated health risks, Curry rising crime, severely reduced ONC and Forest Service timber receipts, the Chetco Bar fire destruction, 2015 sinkhole. I think we've essentially recovered from that. The opioid crisis throughout the country, and Curry County is not immune from that. Lost Creek Reservoir, reduced salmon hatchery counts, unregulated, that portion of industrial marijuana growing, rehabilitation and reforestation, lack of funding. We burn our forests up and then we don't have the money to replant for the future generations. We got some work to do. The Lobster Creek 2018 fire destruction, and of course the Klondike. The reason I bring up Commissioner Lycan is because I think when you forgive the sports analogy, but if you're gonna win, you're gonna go out and you're gonna recruit the best possible people that you can find. Then you support them. You develop a team attitude. You outwork them, or you lead by example. You challenge them. You get them to buy in, and you find again the best people you can possibly locate. For just to bring it out there, in the contractual basis, cost of the county would be $27,500, would include expenses, at least for the first 3 months, depending on how much he might work. You know, he's an hour from Salem. That saves you and I going, or any one of the three of us. And I have good contacts up there. You will have good contacts, but nothing like he's had after 20 years of public service. So we've got some tough decisions to make. You know, we're the head coaches. We're not in this for the money, but we made some promises, and we're going to do everything we can to keep those promises. And the people are out there. The people we need to solve these problems that I just read off there, they're available. And again, they want to help us. So yeah, we can compete with anybody on the Oregon coast, anybody in Northern California, to bring those people here. It's just our responsibility to find them, put them in place, support them, and then get the job done. So thanks for indulging me that extra time there.
I have one more, 2 sentences. It's come to my attention, and I should have realized this, that our Coast Guard is not being paid because of the government shutdown, and they really are a vital part of this community. I know the commission as a whole cannot divvy out money to them, but if we as a community could reach out to them, that would be really great. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gold. And I have one more thing. I told you.
Okay.
Letter in the pilot to the editor today. I don't know how in the world I missed that, but almost every commissioner was mentioned, going back as far as Ralph Brown, and most of them I have tremendous respect for, including him. So in this interest, this challenge to find those people, maybe that'll help us solve the problems. Thank you again, Mr. Chair.
All right, so at this time, we're going to go into executive session. I'd like to take a 3-minute recess, kind of let everyone get up and get stretched.
I talked to Council Huddle, and he suggested we not go into executive session for this.
If I could, thank you.
That was my last thought, was we were going into executive session.
Ah, very good. Well, let me...
Are we or are we not? I don't know. He
Thank
came
you.
and talked to me.
Sure. So this is an exec session, and the idea of this exec session was to convene under ORS 192-660 sub 2 sub A, which is the employment of a county officer, employee, or individual agent. Then that sounds good on its face, but then what happens is with the statutes, you read down further on the exec session, and under subsection 7 it says that a local government can only go into exec session for the purposes of considering the employment of a public officer, agent, etc., if they have advertised the position and followed their personnel rules. The interesting part there is we followed our personnel rules, but what we're proposing is a rehire of a former employee, and our personnel rules don't require us to advertise, so we didn't advertise. So there's a possible flaw in us going to executive session. I've talked to the person that we are considering hiring, Julie Schmelzer, and she said that she was okay not having this be an executive session, and she also is currently employed elsewhere and is unable to be here. So I think what we're actually ready for is the 2 items then, the adoption of the new position description and then the higher order consideration. Those, unless there's something else. Oh, thank you. If you like, we had the agenda amendment to talk about the building official. So it's the order of the board, however you prefer those be presented.
Why don't we do Stauffer first and then Schmelzer after?
Thank you. So at your places, I prepared a order, and this is an order terminating the Curry County building official. And what it says, it looks like this. Good, thank you. What it says is on September 19, 2018, by order 20570, at the recommendation of former county administrator, the Board of Commissioners approved the hire and payment out of class salary for the county building official, Richard Stauffer. And whereas at that time, the payment of the building official out of class was objected to by one member of the board, and since the time of the vote, the composition of the Board of Commissioners has changed so that a majority of the board does not find it in the public interest to pay the building official out of class salary. And whereas the Board of Commissioners has voted to repeal Ordinance 1701, thereby separating employment with the former county administrator, and has appointed an interim county administrator, ICA, which is myself. And then whereas the ICA recommends against paying the building official out of class and recommends repealing the higher order and otherwise terminating the employment of the building official. However, per Ordinance 1701, the ICA is unable to terminate employment with any employee without board approval. And then it says, now therefore the Board of County Commissioners hereby orders that Order 20570 is repealed and employment of building official Richard Stauffer is terminated date of this day. So I'm requesting a motion to approve that order.
Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
And a second? Hearing no second, I'll second that. Any further comments?
Just one comment. Is he still in his probationary period?
So all
Was he?
department,
I know
thank
it's
you.
gone.
Essentially, every department head is probationary. Probationary is another way to describe what's called at will, where you can be terminated without cause, essentially.
Okay,
And
so
this
that's what this is?
Yes.
Okay.
So again, right, it's not identifying any cause for termination here, and that's the way it's proposed and the way recommended.
So would Richard have any redress about all of this, or no? Just curious.
Not, I don't like to give any legal opinion publicly on such topics, but the general, because it's not a cause, he would have to somehow come up with some reason. But based on a no-cause termination, no, he's essentially at will, and at will means you can be terminated without cause. So
Okay.
this
He's
doesn't-
already left, am I correct?
This doesn't present one. My understanding is technically he's an employee through 5 p.m. today based on this order.
All right, so I have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Question?
Aye.
No.
Aye?
So now for the job description, is that the next
Yes, sir.
item? Okay.
8B would be the job description of Operations Director.
Thank you. So the items in your supplemental packet, which was published, but since the time it was published, we have received some feedback, and we have a few changes to the job description to share with you. I have talked to Julie Schmelzer about the changes, and she is accepting of the proposed changes. The changes were proposed by some of the other elected officials as well as myself, and I've presented you at your places with two pieces. One says show edits, the other says clean. So the clean would be what goes in the packet or what goes in the actual exhibit, and the show edits is to show you the changes that were made since it was published and prepared. Essentially, in the first paragraph, it said that the county administrative, working with the Board of Commissioners, would have supervision of county administrative departments, divisions, and offices, except the departments of district attorney and sheriff. What other elected officials said, well, can we also be specifically exempted from that, and we, supervise our own departments? And I talked to Julie, she said she was acceptable with that, and I talked to the chair, and he said he was acceptable with that. So what we have changed the word to say is except departments of elected officials and county council, and then county council was also outside of the purview of the prior elected official. And just kind of for your information, under ORS 203, the board appoints the county council, and so I don't see any really departure of how we're doing that. So again, and so we made those changes on that page, and it's on the second page. We mirrored that change under personnel management section of the job description. And then lastly, today I spoke with the county accountant. I spoke with Julie Schmelzer, and the county accountant on page, if you look here, it's at the bottom of page 2, finance management. It says in cooperation with the finance director acts as county budget officer, and it's actually, we don't technically have a finance director, we have a county accountant. So that would probably say county accountant, but essentially the director of operations would oversee the budget officer, and we have already have a separate order from the board, even after we had, I think, the county administrator position here, that the county accountant is our budget officer. So that would stay the same. I've talked to Julie Schmelzer about this. She says she's okay with that. So I would make those changes and then recommend adoption of this. By the way, just a little bit about this job description. It is not the same job description of the county administrator. There's certain similarities, but of course, the county administrator was a formalization of some of the things that were done by our director of operations and whatnot earlier. So there's a lot of overlap in the performance, but the county administrator position, I believe, was an E19. After we reviewed this with Local Government Personnel Institute, this is an E17, which is a lesser position, and also different from the county administrator position. This director of operations also would act as the department head of community development department. So it is different from the county administrator. Yes, there are several similarities, but it is a lesser and different position from that. Also, the interesting part is the higher orders and the AGRS were prepared in my absence in essentially haste. I have some changes to those that I'll be making and presenting to the board just for clarification. They included language that it was a recommendation from county council to both adopt this job description and to hire the individual. That's really not the place of county council to recommend this, that, or the other. What actually happened, and so I've changed on the new position, I've explained the whereas to say after review by the personnel officer, county council, and the Local Government Personnel Institute, which is our standard way to come up with job descriptions, the Board of Commissioners for Curry County finds that it's in the public interest that the attached position be adopted, and then you're in agreement with the title and attached, and then you adopt it. So it takes out that it's a recommendation of county council. It's just not really a legal matter. So it's not, and anyway, so those are a change there on that order, and that's what I have for the, that's all the only explanation I have on the Director of County Operations job title adoption for the board.
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the changes and the job description as provided by Council Huddle.
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Any further discussion? A question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we'll move on to 8C, Director of Operations Hire Order for Julie Schmelzer.
Thank you. And then very similar to the last item, we had that it was the recommendation of county legal counsel that the following person be rehired. It's actually, my understanding, it was a desire of the board, and as acting county administrator, I don't oppose that the following person be rehired to fill the position at the salary range step rate of pay status. And that person is Julie Schmelzer, Director of Operations at the range and salary step described. Nothing's changed on that. So it's just some of the predicates were changed to make it not a recommendation of county council. It's just really not how we do stuff on higher orders. So other than that, I don't have any changes, and that's all I had.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to accept the hire order for Julie Schmelzer, Director of Operations for Curry County.
DCO, is that Director of Curry Operations? No, County Operations. I will second that, Mr. Chair.
Any further comments?
I have some comments. The reason I
Commissioner
called...
Gold?
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. I have some comments. The reason I asked for an executive session was I had some serious concerns about possible judgment. Julie Schmelzer had a DUI and a reckless driving offense. The mugshot was all over the internet, so I wanted to confirm that, and it was confirmed. This is a fact, and so I'm going to have to vote no on this issue for that reason.
Any further comments?
You know, Josephine County has almost 90,000 people, and apparently at their board meeting yesterday I got a lot of flack because they absolutely hate to see her go for obvious reasons. A lot of people certainly a majority hated to see her leave Curry County to head over there. So they have certainly, and their citizens certainly have come to grips with, I have to be real careful to look at the log in my own eye when I challenge somebody else that made a mistake, and so I'm not going to say anything beyond that. Nothing shocks me. Welcome aboard, Julie Smeltzer, and it is a great time for Curry County. We're not going to waste another 2 years, not even another 2 weeks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can I say one more thing?
Any further comments? Go ahead, Ms. Gould.
This is not a personal attack on my part, and I will accept whatever the board decides to do. If she comes on board, I will work with her, but I just have to make myself known for this because of my own personal integrity.
Council?
Thank you. I just wanted to say, for the record, in case anybody was wondering, the simple fact of a arrest, and so far there have not been convictions, is not a legally disqualifying event for hiring anyone. I have also run this scenario by our insurance company, and they do not have a issue with us hiring this person. So just want to let you know that.
Commissioner Boyce.
At the risk of sounding like I need to have the last word, Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Huddle, for that. I'm not surprised, and as we work to try and build our reputation back around Oregon, what just took place there is going to set us back again further, but we'll roll up our sleeves, keep going up that hill, and the shock around the state, it just keeps coming and coming and coming, and I'm really sad for that.
Ms. Gould.
I just want to say one thing more. I wanted this in executive session simply because I didn't want it out in the public for her sake. So,
On my final comment on this, I will say, let you who have never sinned throw the first stone. I have a motion and a second. Question, please.
Aye.
no.
Aye. Welcome aboard, Ms. Schmelzer. All right, at this point, I think our meeting is closed for the day. Thank you all for attending.